Chapter 828. Break the ice to get out. Chapter 828. Break the ice to get out. Seeing that his first strike did not bring him victory, Blackhorn was solemn. He sensed the energy fluctuate on Shi Yang's body. Then, he became more frightened. At this moment, the energy ripples generated from Shi Yang wasn't something a warrior at the second sky of King Godrealm could have done. Even a warrior with the third sky of King Godrealm cultivation base couldn't store energy at the high level that he was doing. Blackhorn focused. He no longer had contempt towards Shi Yang, standing there imposingly. A cold mist gushed out from his body, twirling around him. The hazy mist continually diffused and expanded. A freezing aura overflowed from Blackhorn's body. Shortly, the several thousand square meter training yard was engulfed by a cold mist. Crack, crack. In the white fog, a glacier cracked on the ground and slowly emerged in the training yard. The translucent glacier was formed by the underground water under Blackhorn's freezing energy. The chilly aura glowed even in the yard while the glacier shot out dazzling lights. The cold air permeated everywhere in the Blue Demon's base and slowly expanded to other places of the Heaven Punishment City. Many warriors of the Heaven Punishment City walking on the glamorous streets of the Heaven Punishment City suddenly felt cold air coming, which made them shudder. All of a sudden, those people found the source of this phenomenon was the Blue Demon's base. They hesitated for a while, then started to gather. The arena where Shi Yang and Blackhorn were fighting was the large training yard outside the Blue Demon's building, which had several stone gates. Guards of the Blue Demon pirates were watching each gate. They didn't allow anyone to get in. Chief. A warrior of Blue Demon stood by the stone gate and looked at Feng Ku from the far distance and asked for orders. They are asking to come in and watch the fight. Should we allow them? Many warriors in the Heaven Punishment City were gathering at the stone gates of the training yard, screaming and yelling, asking to get in and watch the battle. Feng Ku arched his brows. He watched them from the stone platform, contemplated for a while, then said faintly, "Let them in." The crowd surrounding the stone gates became louder hearing him. Shortly after, many people stormed in and encircled the yard. Seeing the glacier raising in the air, they discolored in fear, asking the others to know what was happening here. Among this crowd, some people were hiding in the back as if they were afraid of being noticed. That small group of people included Carthew, Z Yarrow, Ao Jera, Yalan, and Tai Mu. Carthew, Z Yarrow, and Ao Jera, who had covered their faces with masks and stood behind the pirates of the Heaven Punishment City. They didn't dare come closer. Instead, they remained hiding and watching from a distance. "It's him." As she had just arrived, Z Yarrow trembled at first glance, shouting through her gritted teeth. Carthew, Ao Jera, and the others looked, and their faces became strange when they found a young man standing nonchalantly behind the glacier. Why is he fighting this other person? Z Yarrow was very surprised, whispering her question as she couldn't understand the situation. "Hey friend, what is going on?" Carthew frowned. He stepped forward, flashing 5 medium-quality divine crystals in his palm, then shoving them into the sleeve of a pirate. "Haha, they are fighting because of young Lady Feng Rao. Master Barrett wants to marry young Lady Feng Rao. Master Feng Ku agreed with him before. However, it seems Our Lady likes that kid more." Then as the pirate received the payment from Carthew, he narrated the story livelily. After that, he waved his hands and stomped his feet to add more details. "When Blackhorn and that kid started this battle, it didn't look like he will lose. This battle is fascinating. You should concentrate on the battle." Carthew was surprised. He nodded to the pirate, then stepped back, lowered his voice and explained to Z Yarrow's group. "That asshole attacks Barrett's troop because of a woman. Damn it." Z Yarrow felt so annoyed listening to Carthew's narration. She cursed under her breath. She gritted her teeth while her beautiful eyes looked at Shi Yang with rage. Second sky. The second sky of King Godrealm. This kid is really incredible. Carthew smiled bitterly, turning around to glare at Ao Jera. He compared the two inwardly, his face odd. Ao Jera grimaced, standing there upright and anxiously. "This boy really is exceptional," Tai Mu appraised. Yalan nodded in agreement. "I know him. Bai Ru's voice arose from another group. Father, his name is Shiyang. We got him from Nita in the 6th Herbal Star. We used him as the human body cauldron for a while. After that, he joined Du Feng and Zi Yarrow rescued them all. This man killed Fergie in our Underworld League. He's really ruthless. Without him, Du Feng could never escape. Just like Zi Yarrow, Bai Ru was disguised. She appeared to be a normal woman without the gentle and white features of the past. A new character, Bai Tian, the commander of the Underworld League, nodded. He was wearing a straw raincoat with a leaf hat. His realm isn't bad, the second sky of King God realm. Oh, yeah, his realm isn't low. How were you guys able to capture him and make him a human cauldron that year? Bai Ruo. Bai Tian frowned, changing his visage. Something weird. At that time, he had only the second sky of True God realm. Bai Ru looked baffled as she uttered uncertainly. Bai Tian's face became solemn. Are you sure? I'm not sure. But it's true that he had only the second sky of True God realm that year. Otherwise, none of us would have been able to restrain him, said Bai Ru in a worried manner. Her beautiful eyes sparkled as she couldn't believe it. Allard. Bai Tian let out a low shout. General Commander, young lady Bai Ru is right. At that time, he had only the second sky of True God realm. Moreover, he had broken through to his new realm on our steamship as a human body cauldron, said Alchemist Allard, his face grim as if he had just lost his parents. He is such a talented character and you didn't recognize it to persuade him to join our force. You even let Dark Firmament Divine Nation take him. You fool. Bai Tian shouted in a low voice. Allard and Bai Ru regretted so much. Watching the silhouette standing in the training yard, they didn't know what to say. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Black Horn soared up to the sky. Ice blades danced around him. His god domain shot out, snatching Shiyang in the air. Countless ice cubes shot out from the raising glacier, fiercely overflowing his god domain, creating more icicles. At first glance, they looked like a billion ice blades revolving. This threat was formidable, indeed. Quick ice windstorm. Black Horn roared, his voice was able to even shake the sky. 10,000 ice blades turned, creating a furious ice blade tornado covering the entire massive training court. The glacier vanished at speeds that naked eyes couldn't see. Countless ice beams shot into the sky, joining the center of Black Horn's quick ice windstorm. People then saw that the whole dome of the sky was covered with sharp, sparkling icicles. Billions of ice blades were about to sweep over the universe. This scene was very frightening. Many low-realm warriors retreated in fright as they were afraid that the ice blades would deviate and hit them, or that the cold chi could seep into their god bodies. Crack, crack. The ice blade collided. Breaking sounds reverberated in the entire place. The quick ice windstorm had covered the entire training yard. The onlookers couldn't see what was happening in there. Only warriors at the original God realm could see through the cold air of the quick ice windstorm to vaguely see the situation inside the storm. The sharp icicles, ice crystals, ice sabers, and ice beams were wreaking havoc inside the quick ice windstorm. The green stone ground of the training yard exploded. Debris rolled together with the scattering ice pieces. Black Horn guided the quick ice windstorm to fiercely press down to imprison a person. Numerous pieces of icicles, ice crystals, and ice sabers were used, creating the icy power, which generated the glacier the second time. Gradually, pieces of rock and ice scattered. The earth-shattering energy tornado ceased, which divided into 5 or 7 parts in the middle of the training yard. A new glacier was formed. The transparent glacier was around 1,000 meters tall and a couple of 100 meters thick. It looked like a giant crystal block. Shiyang stood upright in the middle of the glacier. He didn't change his posture, looking like he never moved. However, his god body was confined in the thick glacier. When people observed him, they could see the current cold air streaming continuously through his body. Black Horn wore a cold visage. Standing on the glacier, he stooped to watch Shiyang being trapped inside the glacier. He snorted and turned to Feng Ku. "Do I need to continue?" Everybody else quieted down, looking at Feng Ku as if they had agreed to do so beforehand. They also glared at Feng Rao, who maintained a grimace while she stood behind Feng Ku. Barrett grinned continually, raising his voice. If Big Brother Feng Ku doesn't say anything, he agrees tacitly that you can kill him. Do it. Watch out. However, at this moment, Alchemist Jester, who had been silent from the beginning, suddenly felt something. He couldn't help but shout. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. A scarlet flame and a red-orange flame surged vehemently. Inside the glacier, they shot out from Shi Yang's eyes. Within 1 second, the intimidating flames expanded, covering the entire glacier. The burning flame had melted and washed away the extremely cold energy of the glacier shortly. The scorching flames shot out, running on the glacier to reach Black Horn. Instantly, the flame mounted on his legs and crept all over his body. In just a blink, the furious flame burned Black Horn's body. He screamed crazily, which shocked everyone. The glacier melted quickly. Shi Yang simply left the ice. A brutal gleam sparkled in his blood-red eyes. He sprang towards Black Horn. Hiss hiss. The ear-splitting hissing resounded. Fine space cracks appeared in the void as if something was trying to getting out of its confinement. Black Horn discolored as he felt his god soul be constrained by some unknown force. No matter how hard he wiggled, he couldn't get rid of it. He couldn't locate the direction of the attacker. Black Horn felt so much pain. Starlight gathered, making a broadsword in Shi Yang's hand. The starry night seemed to be reflected in this broadsword, hiding the mysteries of the stars. It then turned into the moving starlight slashing at Black Horn. Black Horn got hit. Starlight sparked from his body as he was blown away. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. 3 bone thorns appeared in the void, stabbing his back. Blood splashed instantly. Shi Yang wore a cold and harsh face. There was no emotion reflected on his face. He continued to chase and bombard his target. Chapter 829. Become famous after one battle. Chapter 829. Become famous after one battle. Black Horn's god body trembled in the air like a kite that had its line cut off. However, he didn't fall. The extremely cold chi seeped out from his god body. A thick white mist covered his entire body, creating a thick ice layer. At this moment, Black Horn looked like a giant ice sculpture, crystal clear and sparkling. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The 3 bone thorns flew rapidly, tearing the dome of the sky. They hissed terrifyingly, pricking Black Horn's god body. His ice layer was smashed. Black Horn's god body bled terribly. However, the broken ice and the thick cold chi were lashing around him, protecting his god body. Although he had a lot of bleeding wounds, his foundation wasn't damaged. Black Horn was a member of the Dragon Horn tribe, a branch of the demon clan. He had an unbreakable body. After he reached the 3rd sky of King God Realm, his body became even more tenacious after countless quenching times. Although the bone thorns were sharp, they could only prick some holes but not pierce through his god body. The broadsword now had a pair of glorious starlight wings. Shi Yang changed the direction continuously by the mysterious trajectory of the stars in the sky. Flames were generated between his palms, shooting out like rainbows covering the sun. They all aimed at Black Horn. Since Black Horn had cultivated the extremely cold power, when the flaming energy of the vermilion bird true flame and the earth flame seeped into his body, the energy in his body became chaotic. For the time being, he couldn't gather enough energy, which was also why he didn't do anything to resist Shi Yang's attack. Shi Yang knew Black Horn was a powerful warrior. When he attacked, he had to try his best and urge all the powers in his body. In the 3rd sky of Rampage Realm, Shi Yang continually changed his star power and space power, turning them into inexplicable martial techniques. He had used the shooting flames, the space confinement, and space blades, and the 3 bone thorns. His attacks covered every direction just like the thunderstorm to restrain Black Horn's body. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The violent explosions, which were strong enough to shake the whole place, arose from where Black Horn was hovering. Pieces of ice shattered. Countless ice crystals flew beautifully and sparklingly everywhere. The extremely cold energy twirled around Black Horn. Under Shi Yang's fierce attack, his iron-rigid body echoed the sounds of clinking. Black Horn had to drain his power rapidly to create a thick, firm ice shield. A complex series of changes had confused the onlookers. Their clamorous discussions ceased as they concentrated on the battle. Shi Yang had been confined in the glacier. Shortly, powerful flames arose around his body, which broke the ice confinement to fly out. Then, he used that flame to seep into Blackhorn's god body that made him struggle and prevented him from urging his energy. Then, Shi Yang seized the chance to bombard Blackhorn, making him struggle more. Blackhorn didn't have extra energy or time to counterattack. This series of attacks had stunned people. After a while, they finally reacted, screaming and yelling. Fire power! How can he shift his power? Isn't his main power the Ice Upanishad? Holy moly! I saw the changes in space power, and where did that freaking flame come from? Where does this kid come from? His powers Upanishad are mixed, right? Hey, he can use so many kinds of power. His cool, indeed. Blackhorn is suppressed. Too frightening. This outsider is really strong. Yeah, super strong. The onlookers had acknowledged Shi Yang's competence. At the second sky of King God Realm, he managed to suppress Blackhorn, which had proven everything. Even Feng Ku, Russell, Jianong, Jester, and the other original God Realm warriors quieted down. They were baffled and frightened inwardly. Barrett's face was stony. He didn't say anything, just gazing at the finished battle. He seemed to be waiting for something. I never imagined that he had become so strong, Carthew acclaimed in the crowd. Barrett must have counted on Blackhorn's tenacious god body. Too bad. He didn't know that Shi Yang's god body was also incredibly abnormal. I think Barrett had the wrong plan this time. Yalan and Tai Mu nodded, speaking in unison. Shi Yang's god body is too strong. We have never seen something like that before. Zi Yaro's beautiful eyes rippled with a strange light. Her bright line of sight was glued to Shi Yang, not detracting for even a second. She seemed to forget that Ao Jera, her admirer for years, was standing next to her. That kid is too brilliant. You fool. You didn't attract him. That was your biggest mistake. Bai Tian turned to Alad and Bai Ru, talking with his dark face. He took a deep breath then asked, "You two think about ways for us to overturn this." Alad and Bai Ru exchanged bitter smiles, not knowing how to answer their superior. "We should always try." Bai Tian furrowed his brows, asking, "After this battle ends, you guys find a way to approach him and see if you can persuade him to join us. That boy will be a true character in our star area. If he works for us, we will have strong support." "Father, is he as talented as you said?" asked Bai Ru in a low voice. "I've been in the raging flame star area for so many years. I haven't seen a kid with that big of a potential." Bai Tian took a deep breath, his face serious. "If we can have him, I won't hesitate to let you marry him." Bai Ru's beautiful face discolored as she was stunned. When she parted from Shi Yang, she had boasted that she would make Shi Yang pay a big price for offending her. And today, to persuade Shi Yang, Bai Tian, her father, was willing to sacrifice her lifetime's happiness to make her marry Shi Yang. How could she face Shi Yang? She had made a big mistake that year. Alad bowed his head deeply. He didn't dare talk as his heart was filled with begrudging and bitter feelings. While the onlookers were clamoring, Shi Yang's body sparkled with starlight. His garnet eyes gazed at Blackhorn's god body. In the cold white mist, their god bodies collided and started to wrestle. The demon clan had tough bodies. After they had condensed the god body, their tenacious bodies would be ranked the first among the other clans. Shi Yang had the guts to jump into the mist and let his body take the impact of Blackhorn's body just to see how powerful his own body was. Boom boom boom. Just like the thundering drum beats, the two were entangled with each other in the thick white mist. They wrestled, generating an ear-splitting noise. The explosions echoed unceasingly. After 1 hour, everything gradually calmed down. The thick white mist dispersed, revealing the training yard little by little. The yard was almost torn apart with many deep holes, both big and small. The crystal-clear ice shattered everywhere. The whole scene showed devastation. Shi Yang and Blackhorn were both wounded. They stood in the middle of the yard, looking at each other. Blackhorn looked tired. Blood dripped from his face. He was powerlessly paled as his legs were shaking. They couldn't help him steady his body. Shi Yang was in the opposite condition. Although he had blood all over his body, his spirit, soul, and qi were still full. His eyes were still bright as though his power was still full. Black Horn tried to endure for a while before he panted and sat down on the ground. He stared at Shi Yang for a while before stooping his head, talking to Barrett. "I've used all of my energy. I can't take your woman back. The energy of my god body was also consumed. I feel guilty for failing you." When he finished, everybody else gawked. Barrett wore a face that people couldn't see his real emotions. He looked at Shi Yang, then Black Horn. Afterward, he nodded. His figure flashed and he reached Black Horn, bringing him and soaring up into the sky. They disappeared shortly. As he and Feng Rao had an agreement in front of so many people and now he failed, he had nothing else to say but to leave. Staying here, he just gave the others the chances to tease and mock him. Thus, Barrett decided to leave quickly. As soon as Barrett and Black Horn had left, the yard seemed to explode with screams, cheers, grunts, and shouts. Many people now had another look as they admired Shi Yang with respect. "Dag, you're right. I admit it now, Ka Fu had arrived in the middle of the battle. He had watched the last part of the battle. At this moment, he was filled with emotions. We're lucky that we didn't take action against you. Otherwise, we couldn't have gained anything but our own loss." Bloody Slaughterer Ka Tuor grinned evilly. "Of course. If not, would I be that servile to call him my senior? Am I that low of a type of person?" Ka Fu laughed. "Girl, you've chosen a good guy." Feng Ku talked to his daughter with a smile on his face. "Good vision. Pay attention to him and grab him tight. Don't let him leave you." "I know, father. Do I need a reminder?" Feng Rao shyly talked. Her beautiful eyes were filled with joy and excitement. She balled her fists as she was thrilled. She would never have thought that Shi Yang could have such power and strength. He defeated Black Horn, a warrior at the peak of King God Realm. He gave her a big joyful surprise. After this battle, Shi Yang's name had been widely spreading in the land of God Punishment. He was no longer a small, anonymous character without a legend. If he works for us, he will bring us great support for our team. If we can find a new star area, we will give him a life star. He is worth this price, said Feng Ku, pondering for a while. Feng Xiao nodded in thrill. This man has endless potential. If he works for us, a life star is worth giving to him. Feng Rao's beautiful eyes showed that she was touched. The happiness on her face became more vivid. As Shi Yang had gained her father and brother's approval, she was happy enough to think about her bright future. She thought that the resentment of spending hundreds of years in the Purgatory Star had been lifted away from her heart. Your Highness, your fortune is really big since you had that kid as your escort, Carthew spoke in a low tone in the crowd. He turned then continued, I will arrange things so as you can meet him. I hope he won't change and he will still work for you. Otherwise, the land of God Punishment will have someone much more intimidating than the combination of Feng Ku, Russell, Jianong, and B.A. That won't be good for the Dark Firmament Divine Nation. I don't know if he has changed or not. I don't know if he will continue to be my entourage, either. Zi Yaro's face was bitter as she felt that a treasure was sliding away from her. All of a sudden, she became sorrowful. The land of God Punishment has so many pirate organizations. But they will have a master in the near future, said Bai Tian, the commander of the Underworld League. He took a deep breath then said, Little Ru, has this kid had good feelings, for you? Bai Ru was stunned. She contemplated for a while then shook her head. Then let's make him have such feelings, said Bai Tian with a solemn face. Use your beautiful face to charm him. It won't be a difficult task, right? You guys should plan carefully and make him our subordinate. He's the target right after the star map. Pay more attention. Chapter 830, Zi Yaro's Secret Bitterness. Chapter 830, Zi Yaro's Secret Bitterness. Shi Yang stood upright in the middle of the ice, frowning while his soul consciousness wandered around the clamorous crowd. He was a little shaken. His eyes roamed around the crowd once. He suddenly found something, his eyes sparkling. However, He didn't focus any further on sensing where his soul consciousness had found something significant. Shi Yang and Zi Yarrow had spent a long time together in an abandoned area of the solar star exploding fragment field, and he had used the Life Upanishad to heal her wound, so he was much familiar with her life magnetic field. While battling with Black Horn, his soul consciousness had become crystal clear, more than ever. He could grasp all the commotions around him, even the tiniest ones. At that moment, Shi Yang knew Zi Yarrow was here. As Zi Yarrow was the princess of the Dark Firmament divine nation, when her identity was disclosed in the Heaven Punishment City, she would have big trouble. Shi Yang understood this well. Thus, although he could sense Zi Yarrow's direction, he didn't dare look at her as he was afraid that others would notice. This would reveal Zi Yarrow's identity. This battle ended as Barrett had brought his warrior away. Feng Ke laughed and he seemed more lively and joyful. He rose his voice and shouted, "My challengers, please leave. You have no more business left here. Leaders who were invited, please stay. I have something important to discuss with you." He had invited the leaders of different forces in the land of God Punishment to discuss the new star area. That battle only occurred because Barrett suddenly demanded Feng Rao crazily. As everything was okay now, he wanted to discuss the star map as it was originally planned. Unauthorized people couldn't stay. As Feng Ke shouted, the guards of the Blue Demon at the stone gates started to make people leave. The uninvited warriors of the Heaven Punishment City had to leave under Feng Ke's threat, including Carthew's team and Bai Tian's team. Soon, only the leaders of the other forces, Russell and Jianong, stood on the ground where ice still scattered. They exchanged looks and walked to Feng Ke. However, Jester didn't move, his eyes gazing at Shi Yang as if he had so many things to say to him. Feng Ke was in a good mood, smiling at Feng Rao. "The meeting will be very boring. It will not be anything fun. You don't need to join it. Take this fantasy sky ring. It stores around 1,000 top-quality divine crystals. You take Shi Yang to walk around the city and see if you want to buy anything. He just arrived in the Heaven Punishment City to give us the star map. I don't think he had any time to visit anywhere. You should go out and have fun. The meeting will take some time. When there are results, I will tell you." Feng Xiao was also happy. "Little sister, that kid has extraordinary realm and competence. Watch him carefully. After this battle, his name will spread in the entire land of God Punishment. We have many strong women here. Don't let them steal your man. Who can be more beautiful than me in the land of God Punishment?" Feng Rao laughed arrogantly as she was full of confidence. "Don't worry. I will keep an eye on him. Yeah, we're heading out now." While they were talking, she flew out of the stone platform, slowly descending. She got to Shi Yang and said tenderly, "We should look at some of these areas. Heaven Punishment City has many interesting places and wonderful objects to buy in the shops. Perhaps you would like to buy something." Since his arrival in Heaven Punishment City, Shi Yang hadn't had a peaceful moment. He had visited Ka Tuor and Ka Fu for a short period of time before Russell threatened them to leave. Afterward, they had hidden outside of the Heaven Punishment City. Shi Yang hadn't had the chance to walk around this place. What Feng Rao suggested was also what he wanted to do. Also, he needed to walk around the wide streets of the Heaven Punishment City to find and meet Zi Yao. Shi Yang agreed and walked with Shi Yang out of the training yard to visit the hustle and bustle of the Heaven Punishment City. Two people came to them one after another. The first one was Ka Fu. "My brother leaves me here. I have nothing to do now. Shi Yang, do you want to take a walk with me?" Bloody slaughterer Ka Tuor was also invited to the meeting. Seeing Feng Ke and Shi Yang perhaps had a close relationship, he decided to stay and explore for a while. He tacitly asked Ka Fu to stay with Shi Yang to avoid any unexpected events. Ka Fu was an experienced businessman. He knew every precious item and where they sold them in the Heaven Punishment City. If Shi Yang wanted to buy something, with Ka Fu's assistance, he wouldn't receive a rip-off. "No need. I'll go with him." Feng Rao let out a low shout to reject Ka Fu before Shi Yang could agree to his offer. "Ka Fu, you should return to your shop and do your business," frowned Feng Rao. Ka Fu was surprised. He beamed a forced smile but didn't answer her right away. He looked at Shi Yang instead. Shi Yang gave him a slight nod. Ka Fu didn't talk more. He clasped his fist before saying his farewells and disappearing into the hurrying crowd. Another figure approached them. He was the alchemist Jester, the one who should have been staying in the Blue Demon's base to discuss with the other leaders of the pirates. However, he proactively got out to find Shi Yang. Sage Jester, why are you here? Feng Rao asked as she didn't understand why he was here. She then introduced him. This is Sage Jester, the original realm alchemist of our land of God punishment. He has cured Bao Ao and the other two. Shi Yang was shaken. He bowed respectfully to thank the old man. How great you are, Professor. Without you, I'm afraid my 3 friends wouldn't have been able to be cured of the flower. Alchemist Jester waved his hands, his face stimulated. Not a big deal. Pardon me for asking something. Is the flame you use, the heaven flame? Yes, it is, Shi Yang nodded. He thought he didn't need to conceal this. Jester was shaken vehemently, his eyes sparkling with divine light. Can you sell your heaven flame to me? Whatever you want, just name a price. As long as you nod, everything is okay. The heaven flames were the foundation of the alchemists and blacksmiths. When a blacksmith or an alchemist had the heaven flame, it would be like a tiger with a pair of wings. The advantage was immeasurable. When the alchemist has the heaven flame, he doesn't need to use the cauldron anymore. The heaven flame was the best cauldron one could ever have. Jester was a talented but stubborn alchemist. He knew about the heaven flames. Thus, when he heard Shi Yang confirm that he had the heaven flame, he was so excited. He wanted to merge the heaven flame into his soul altar, which would sublimate his refining career. I'm sorry. No matter how great of an offer you can give me, I can't sell it. Shi Yang smiled and shook his head. As an alchemist, you know how magical the heaven flames are. And besides being a warrior, I'm also a blacksmith. The heaven flame is also important to me. I will never sell my flame. Jester was stunned. Feng Rao was perplexed. You are a blacksmith, too? Rubbing his nose, Shi Yang said deliberately, what's weird about that? So you are a low-level blacksmith, I suppose? How else could you go that far with your powers, Upanishad? She instinctively assumed. Shi Yang just smiled and he didn't explain. I know nothing can persuade you, sighed Jester. He pondered for a while then asked, so can you use your heaven flame to help me refine a cauldron of pellets? Of course, I will pay you sufficiently. Jester asked Shi Yang sincerely. He slightly bent over, his eyes filled with desires. If it's okay, you should help him. Anyway, he saved your friends, Feng Rao added. All right, I can help you once. When? Shi Yang thought and agreed with him as he found nothing wrong with that. Haha, I'm not hurried. I haven't prepared enough. Jester rubbed his hands, his face excited. Then, I won't disturb you guys furthermore. I'm going inside to listen in on the meeting. Shi Yang, remember our deal. When I gather enough materials, I will need your help. Thank you in advance. No problem, Shi Yang smiled, watching Jester returning to the Blue Demon's base. This old man isn't as difficult to talk to as you said. You told me it would be really tough to ask for his help. Feng Rao's face darkened and she put her head down, her eyes looking at the ground. Do you know how much he asked to cure your friends? How much? 50,000 top-quality divine crystals, plus 3 kinds of divine-grade herbs he prescribed. Feng Rao said bitterly through her gritted teeth. Shi Yang was surprised. Instantly, he felt happy, grinning. So he's rich, right? It's good then. When he asks me to help him, I'll make him give half of that amount back. Feng Rao's beautiful eyes brightened. She nodded continually, speaking cheerily. You should treat him that way. They were talking while sauntering around the wide streets, which extended everywhere in the Heaven Punishment City. They lingered in some shops. Shi Yang wondered. He seemed to not be too interested in the strange and rare items in the shops. He didn't want to buy anything. He just visited each shop as if he simply enjoyed walking and watching things. Feng Rao didn't know that Shi Yang wanted to take a walk just to wait for someone. She was secretly happy thinking that Shi Yang wanted to be with her. She didn't hurry. She just acted as a delicate guide, taking him here and there. Gradually, they left the rowdy streets to a stream that was north of Heaven Punishment City. There was an arch bridge where they were standing, and they watched the murmuring currents underneath. They felt even their hearts quiet down. Right at this moment, Shi Yang's brows suddenly twitched. He smiled and said, "I need to use the bathroom. Wait here for me. I'll back soon." Feng Rao didn't doubt him. She blushed, rolling her eyes at him. "You bastard. Why did you tell me such things? Just go, you don't need to say it so explicitly." Shi Yang chuckled, turning around and disappearing into a small, desolate alley. In an elegant and quiet front courtyard, a graceful figure was standing under the shade of a luxuriant scholar tree. She didn't face the wide-open main gate, talking faintly, "I thought you would never come." "Your Highness." Shi Yang stopped by the gate and bent his body slightly, his face complicated. "I haven't met you since you left the glorious Amethyst Star. It's been a while. Why are you in the Heaven Punishment City?" Zi Yarrow turned around. She had taken off the skin tone mask earlier. Her unparalleled glamour was so enchanting that she could easily take people's souls away. However, deep in her pretty eyes, Shi Yang could see a gleam of bitterness. She said tenderly, "Sir Carthew received news saying that the star map appeared in the land of God Punishment, so he came here. And I heard that you were also in the Heaven Punishment City, so I came here to see you. Anyway, I thought that you would be having a difficult time, so I came here to rescue you. I couldn't imagine that you were enjoying it so much here. It was just me who was overthinking and underestimating your competence. I shouldn't have worried about you so much." A gleam of affection crossed Shi Yang's eyes. He quieted down, not knowing what to say. Chapter 831. Bet on your future. Chapter 831. Bet on your future. Seeing each other once again, Shi Yang didn't know what to say. After they parted in the glorious Amethyst Star, Zi Yarrow came to the Dark Firmament Star while Shi Yang went to the Purgatory Star to join the Extreme Purgatory Field. On his way, his war chariot exploded, creating the dark magnetic deadly explosion, which almost smashed him. He was sure that the one who had attacked him in the dark was Aojera. Not long after he arrived in the Purgatory Star, Aogu Duo suddenly wanted to kill him, accusing him of joining Bloody Slaughterer Ka to assassinate Zi Yao. If Leona hadn't stopped him, Shi Yang would have been dead. Both potentially fatal incidents were related to Aojera. However, Zi Yarrow still took Aojera to the Heaven Punishment City with her. Obviously, she didn't punish him but considered Aojera an important chess piece. Perhaps in her eyes, Aojera still had a big value. Or she was afraid of Aogu Duo's force. No matter the case, to Shi Yang, he couldn't let it go as he was the victim. As long as Aojera was with Zi Yarrow, Shi Yang felt annoyed. "Your Highness, the Heaven Punishment City is unexpectedly dangerous. If you didn't bring enough forces here, you should leave early," Shi Yang said after a long moment of silence. Zi Yarrow's eyes became gloomier. "How about you? Will you go with me? If you expel Aojera, perhaps I will." Shi Yang rose his brow. "I've almost died twice because of him. If he stays, I can't sleep or eat well by your side." "Are you sure he did that?" Zi Yarrow said sadly. Shi Yang beamed a faint smile. "Even with your wisdom, I don't think you recognize his hostility towards me. No matter what reason you have to keep him with you, I don't feel well with it. I won't fight shoulder by shoulder with him. We'll soon have a fight to the death." Zi Yarrow's face was bitter. "Aojera has been following me for so many years. Even if he doesn't have any merit, he is dedicated enough. His works in the glorious Amethyst Star are well done and transparent. I don't have a reason to expel him. Moreover, he has Aogu Duo standing behind him. Can you give me more time?" "I can't ask you for anything, Your Highness," Shi Yang smiled, "but I will remember how you helped him. However, if I deal with Aojera, I won't intentionally lower my powers. If he stays in the Heaven Punishment City, I'm not sure if I won't kill him. How about you? What's your relationship between you and Feng Rao?" Zi Yarrow furrowed her delicate eyebrows. Shi Yang was surprised. He shook his head and laughed. I think it has nothing to do with you, right? I have the rights to chase after any woman I want. You don't have the right to interfere with my business. Am I right? She's a pirate. Zi Yarrow shouted. So what? Asked Shi Yang deliberately. The pirates of the land of God punishment are the nails stuck in the flesh of the three big forces. They are my enemies. If you stay with her, you are on the opposite side to us, said Zi Yarrow angrily. So what? Asked Shi Yang. Zi Yarrow took a deep breath, beaming a forced smile, but she didn't say anything. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. A magical electric magnetic field suddenly expanded from the corner of his eye. Who's that? Carthew's voice came from a stone room nearby. The wind gusted, and a silver silhouette appeared. Sir Carthew, long time no see. Shi Yang bent his body slightly. Carthew nodded. His face was solemn while the wind swirled around him. Boom boom. The stone gate at the back of the garden blew off. A group of about 10 people got in one by one. Leading them was a bulky man with an aquiline nose and deep eye sockets. He looked sinister, haughty, and unruly. Alchemist Allard and Bai Ru appeared behind him. They were all astounded to see Shi Yang. They assessed him discreetly. Shi Yang was also surprised. He became vigilant, preparing for a sudden battle. Bai Tian, Carthew and Zi Yarrow screamed in fright. They changed their visages instantly. Bai Tian was a tough character in the Underworld League. He was second to one person but was greater than tens of thousands of people. He had the second sky of original God Realm, one level higher than Carthew. His family held intimidating powers with several life stars. He commanded a team that had as many hotshots as clouds in the sky. Bai Tian's position in the Underworld League could be compared to Leona's and Aogu duos in the Dark Firmament Divine Nation. They were all tyrant characters whose names could break the dome of heaven of the raging Flamestar area. Carthew, do I look weird? Bai Tian wore an indifferent face, walking as if he didn't care about anyone else. You guys are plotting about the star map, and I wish to join in on this matter. We have the same goal. If you can get here, I can, too. You're quick enough. Carthew was surprised, but he gathered himself quickly. He nodded. If we have the same goal, why do you come here? You want to join hands with me to steal the star map in Feng Ku's hands? Bai Tian beamed a dry smile, shaking his head. I have the same realm as Feng Ku. It's not easy to defeat him. You have only the first sky of original God Realm, so you can't be of much help. Anyway, you, Russell, and Jianong have the same realm. So, I'm not here to cooperate with you. Oh, if I have to find someone to cooperate, I will be more interested in Leona. Obviously, he implied that Carthew wasn't as strong as Leona. Carthew wasn't enraged. He just smiled. I'm weaker compared to Madame Leona. Yeah, if you aren't here to seek cooperation, so why are you here? Because of him. Bai Tian pointed to Shi Yang. His face became solemn as he said, You are Shi Yang, right? You and my Underworld League have business. But my little daughter didn't treat you nicely. She was a little bit harsh to you. On behalf of her, I want to apologize. After pausing for a while, Bai Tian turned and glared at Bai Ru, giving her a low shout. Little Ru. Bai Ru's graceful face distorted as if she didn't want to do it. She had struggled in her mind for a while, then bent her delicate waist, saying desperately to Shi Yang, I'm so sorry for offending you that year. My apologies. Shi Yang, little brother. Forgive us, forgive us. Alchemist Allard clasped his fist, his face smiling. Carthew was stunned. Zi Yarrow was baffled. Shi Yang didn't understand what was going on. Bai Tian, what are you doing? Carthew pondered for a moment, then asked in a confused manner. Cough cough. Bai Tian gave a dry cough, taking a deep breath. He looked at Shi Yang, talking to him solemnly. Little brother. What do you think about my daughter's appearance? Shi Yang, Carthew, and Zi Yarrow were perplexed. Bai Ru's white neck reddened. She looked at Shi Yang embarrassedly. Her bright eyes were filled with anger and embarrassment. She's nice. Her face is beautiful and graceful too. Bai Tian stretched his mouth into a smile, flinging his arm. Then it's good. I want to let my daughter marry you. What do you think? Bai Ru's bright eyes looked like she was about to fire, shaking her head continually behind Bai Tian. She signaled him not to agree. She almost screamed. Carthew and Zi Yarrow shivered, looking at Bai Tian with disbelieving faces. They didn't know what to say. My daughter is mesmerizingly beautiful. I'm Bai Tian, the great commander of the Underworld League. In any aspect, my status is better than Feng Ku's, right? Marrying my daughter will bring you fewer troubles than marrying a pirate. What do you think? Bai Tian smiled. He contemplated for a while and then added, of course, Princess Zi Yarrow is more beautiful and noble, but I think Du Tianji won't be as generous as I am. He won't allow his princess to marry you. So I think my option is more suitable for you. Don't you think so? Carthew, Shi Yang, and Zi Yarrow gawked perplexedly. Even some warriors standing behind Bai Tian gave odd looks. Bai Ru stood behind Bai Tian, continually shaking her head. She was so worried, trying to signal him to reject her father's proposal. It seemed like she had someone else in her heart and she didn't want to become someone who can conveniently recruit strong experts for her father. Shi Yang was astounded for a while. He quietly looked at Bai Tian, then turned to Bai Ru. He took a deep breath. Why? Why did you choose me? Although your realm isn't enough to be noticed, it doesn't mean you will stay that way. I believe that if you can survive, you will become an overlord of a region in the raging Flamestar area. Bai Tian answered frankly. I will take this bet on your future. Carthew was shaken. His eyes brightened up all of a sudden as he shouted, Bai Tian, you're so tricky. I can't deny that I admire your cunning mind. You're worthy to be the hero of your land. You do have imposing manners. Zi Yarrow finally reacted and her soft body shivered. Bai Tian was about to make a big bet. He wanted to use his daughter's lifetime worth of happiness and his mighty force to bet on Shi Yang's future. He strongly believed that Shi Yang would become the most outstanding character in the raging Flamestar area. Thus, he decided that he should persuade and recruit him for his team. He didn't even regret using his daughter because he thought that his bold vision was correct. Shi Yang would become a great overlord in the future. His resolute deeds and imposing manners were terrifying indeed. At this moment, Carthew and Zi Yarrow understood this course of action. And because they understood it, they felt a chill in their hearts caused by Bai Tian's endeavors. If you marry my daughter, you will belong to my force. I can use all the available cultivating materials to tile your path. I can provide you with whatever you want, said Bai Tian seriously. With your natural endowment, I think you can break to the original God realm very quickly. I believe that you don't need 200 years to gain a slot in the raging Flamestar area. I don't know if someone else favors you like I do, but I believe that I have the most sincere proposal. What do you say? Can you give me more time to think? Shi Yang suddenly said. From the other side, Bai Ru was still watching him with sharp eyes, trying to signal him to reject her father. Hearing him, her soft body shook as deep embarrassment and resentment sparkled in her eyes. She looked like a tigress about to bare its fangs and tear Shi Yang's throat. Bai Tian gazed at him for a while. He grinned and nodded. All right, I'll give you time to think about it. All right, we won't disturb you anymore. Bai Tian said to Carthew and Zi Yarrow before turning around and leaving. His warriors followed him silently. During Bai Tian's entire proposal, no one in his delegation had uttered a word. Only Bai Ru lagged behind. Waiting until her father disappeared, she craned her neck behind the stone gate, rolling her eyes at Shi Yang indignantly. She said through her gritted teeth, Don't dream about his offer. Even if I die, I won't marry you. Then, her graceful body disappeared. At the same time, Feng Rao called for him. Because it took him so long time, Feng Rao got uneasy and came to look for him. Chapter 832, The Mark Reappears. Chapter 832, The Mark Reappears. Feng Rao screamed anxiously. Shi Yang didn't linger with Zi Yarrow. He hurried to leave and disappeared shortly. Bai Tian's delegation left. Ao Jera, Yalan, and Tai Mu weren't arranged to stay in this manor house. Thus, only Zi Yarrow and Carthew stayed in this garden. After Bai Tian and Shi Yang had left, Carthew and Zi Yarrow stayed quiet for a long time. They all had devastated looks on their faces. Long after that, Carthew sighed. Bai Tian has guts. He is tough and bold to make such an offer. Zi Yarrow frowned, saying nothing. Using his daughter's lifetime's worth of happiness to bet on Shi Yang's future, if he wins this bet, he will be rewarded immensely. I can tell you that. Carthew took a deep breath then said, with his potential, 200 years is enough time for him to become an outstanding hero of the raging Flamestar area. He could even surpass Bai Tian. If he marries Bai Ru, Bai Tian will put in all of his resources to nurture him. He will grow even faster. So cunning. Bai Tian is very cunning. Zi Yarrow looked bitter, sighing lightly. She had known Shi Yang for a long time. She knew his potential clearer than anyone else. When they were in the solar star exploding fragment field, Shi Yang had only the true God Realm cultivation base. It was shorter than 10 years before he reached the second sky of King God Realm. Zi Yarrow was at the third sky of King God Realm for a long time. However, her realm remained the same while Shi Yang continued to progress. He had just defeated the Demon Clan's expert Black Horn, a guy cultivating ice power Upanishad. Zi Yarrow wondered if she could defeat Black Horn, and she was sure she could not. It meant that Shi Yang had the capabilities to fight her with his own powers and without using external forces. It hasn't been very long. Thinking about all this gave Zi Yarrow a headache. Aojera has Aogu duo to back him up. Anyway, without this, he isn't as strong as Shi Yang. Carthew took a deep breath, his face solemn. Don't give up. If you miss this chance, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Zi Yarrow frowned, asking, Uncle Carthew, what do you mean? You know what I'm talking about. I just want to remind you that Shi Yang is no longer an average guy anymore. Bai Tian has shown up because of him. Feng Ku will also try his best to recruit him. If you don't secure him, you will lose him forever. Manage it yourself. Carthew sighed, shaking his head. Let's go. Aojera and Yalan have been waiting for us for a long time. You should think about it on the way. Oh right. Aogu duo is about to arrive. But Leona will come too. Keep thinking about what you want your relationship with Shi Yang to be. Zi Yarrow furrowed her brows and remained silent. She quietly followed Carthew, her face absent-minded. On the lively streets, Shi Yang and Feng Rao were walking shoulder by shoulder. They smiled from time to time. They seemed to be very happy. Look. That shop sells a lot of strange and bizarre items. Things we can't find in the raging Flamestar area. Feng Rao's eyes brightened as she pointed at a shop by the street. She bloomed her smile as if she was excited, turning to look at Shi Yang. If you need to use the bathroom, I can wait for you, but you need to hurry. Feng Rao was hiding something in her words. Her beautiful eyes sparkled. Staying in the Purgatory Star to retrieve the star map proved her patience and subtlety. She was definitely not a fool. In fact, Feng Rao was meticulous and clear-headed. The time Shi Yang disappeared to do his small business was more than she needed. Connecting it to other abnormal things that happened before, Feng Rao knew that he had gone to meet someone. Being a smart woman, Feng Rao didn't expose this or ask him questions. She chose to pretend to not know anything. Anyway, it didn't mean that she wouldn't care. That was why she took the chance to tease Shi Yang. Nah, I'm done. I'm clean now. Shi Yang smiled embarrassedly. He didn't wait for Feng Rao to say more, heading towards that shop. They were both smart people. There were things they didn't need to say out loud to understand it. This shop was around 1,000 square meters with some square counters that displayed many types of crystals, ores, unknown grass, herbs, and flowers. They even found many pieces of precious leather with natural patterns, beast skeletons, and strange books. Just like a grocery shop, the counters were packed with items. Many of them were strange and unknown. Even Feng Rao didn't know what some of them were. The strange energy fluctuated and rose from some stones, crystals, and beast skeleton, but it wasn't strong or strange. A white-headed old senile woman dozed off on her chair. Her head stooped and nodded from time to time. She seemed to not recognize that she had some customers checking out her shop. The old woman didn't have a high realm. She just got the third sky of true God realm. It seemed like she was stuck in this realm for many years. And since she couldn't break through, she looked old. She seemed to count her life on this shop with the hope to enter the King God realm. The raging flame star area was vast. People could easily meet King God realm warriors and sometimes original God realm warriors. However, not all true God realm warriors could break through to the King God realm. Compared to the thousands of billion people in the raging flamestar area, the King God realm warriors were rare. Many remained stuck in the true God realm for the rest of their lives. This woman was one of them. She stooped and slept tight as if she didn't care whether or not someone planned to steal her items or not. She is the oldest woman in our land of God punishment. I think she is several thousand years old. So many years ago, her man was the strongest leader of the pirates in the land of God punishment. I heard that he had robbed the ships near the border of the raging flamestar area and claimed abundant harvests. However, he had disappeared a couple of thousand years. I think he is dead. And she is still in the land of God punishment to sell goods that he had robbed. I heard that her shop has something we can't find in the raging flamestar area. Of course, the valuable items were all sold out. What we see here are the leftover items after people have finished selecting and buying. Just normal and useless stuff. Feng Rao explained when they got into the shop. We can just watch. We don't have to buy anything. This shop has something the raging flamestar area doesn't have. So did anyone buy something good here? Asked Shiyang. Yes, rumors say that some people had bought the priceless items here. Feng Rao nodded. Of course, it is just a rumor. We haven't seen anything yet. She's been here when my father was just a little pirate. This legend has been told even before that. I heard it from my father. I'm not sure whether it is true or not. Shiyang was surprised, but he didn't pay much attention. Instead, he just walked around and checked things out. He found many stones and crystals that he didn't even know the name of. Many of the objects didn't have energy fluctuations, so he didn't know what they could be used for. Also, he couldn't tell what kind of beasts those skeletons were because they had been there for quite a long time. He couldn't tell the level or class of those skeletons either. It was hard to tell their values. And he found many small and peculiar toys, which also didn't have a beam of aura or energy. This shop had hundreds of items piled on the counters. Most of them didn't have energy. If they did, their energy was so feeble, which didn't make them worth much. Shiyang didn't have any purpose in looking for valuable things here. He was simply curious, wanting to see how the items of the other star area look like. He just went back and forth between the counters to observe the items, releasing his soul consciousness to sense. A fist-sized dim blue stone orb, which didn't have a beam of energy, caught Shiyang's attention. It was heavier than it looked. This dim blue stone orb looked ordinary. It had no feature that was unusual. It didn't have the natural texture of stone either. However, when Shiyang sent his soul consciousness into the orb, his star power Upanishad reflected a weak beam of energy fluctuation. This stone orb seemed to have some tiny but magical relation to his star power. Shiyang was amazed. He quietly picked the dim blue stone orb, put it on the counter and nodded to Feng Rao. I want this stone orb. He didn't hasten to use his star power Upanishad to sense the mysteries of the stone orb. This place was someone's shop, so it was not convenient. If this orb had something magical and someone else besides him got it, he would have had to pay a big price to get the orb. Okay. Continue to see if you want to buy anything else. Feng Rao glared at the stone orb, then shifted her eyes away. She didn't pay much attention to his item. Just like Shiyang, she crouched to find some toys for herself. Shiyang continued to rummage through the piles of miscellaneous items under the counter. Those things were strange, but because they didn't have any energy, Shiyang couldn't use his soul consciousness to check them. Soon, he walked to another pile of miscellaneous goods. A small, cold shield suddenly fell into his palm. This one was a pocket edition. It was as big as a human face. It looked exquisite and even lovely. This small shield was blue and brown. It felt cold and smooth in his hand. Shiyang's soul consciousness sank into it. No energy was reported. The backside of the shield didn't have any pattern or carved formation. Shi Yang just skimmed through it. He threw it away, not paying much attention. Clink clink. The small shield created some sounds in the pile of assorted items. Shi Yang looked at it and his face stiffened immediately. On a side of the blue-brown shield showed a mark of 5 blood-red cloud. It was the exact same image as the mark on his god soul's forehead. Shi Yang was startled. He became solemn because when he had just checked the shield, he hadn't seen any mark on either side of the smooth shield. However, after he had rubbed it and thrown it away, the mark appeared. What was going on? Was it because of him? Shi Yang inhaled, making himself clear-minded. He resumed his normal countenance and picked up the small shield. The mark of 5 blood clouds on the shield faded away when he looked again. However, the shield became colder. Shi Yang was skeptical and perplexed at the same time. He took the small shield, placing it next to the stone orb and nodding to Feng Rao. I also want this. Boy, I'm sorry. We don't sell that small shield, the old woman said in a sleepy voice. The old woman had just woken up. Shi Yang was astounded. Chapter 833, Fei Lan. Chapter 833, Fei Lan. The old woman was still sleepy. She bent her body slightly then opened her eyes. Her opaque eyes had no light in them. She looked quiet and senile. She had been stuck in the true god realm for many years. She couldn't pass through the king god realm. She seemed to be numb to this fact, losing her faith in her ability to increase her realm. For the rest of her life, she took care of this small shop, waiting for something to happen. People said that she was waiting for her husband, the strongest pirate of the land of God punishment many years ago. He had disappeared near the border of the raging Flamestar area. Several thousand years ago, that man used to be like Feng Ku, a leader of the pirates in the land of God punishment, whose fame matched his competence. However, he was much stronger than Feng Ku with a more profound realm. His operating area wasn't bound by the raging Flamestar area. He had stretched his influence to the peripheral areas of the star area. He had often visited the area where ships from other star areas passed by. Perhaps because of his guts and his marvelous powers, he became arrogant, which led to unexpected events. He could never come home from the edge of the raging Flamestar area. It has been so many years. Many new pirate leaders had risen, including Feng Ku. However, none of them had the force and capability that could be compared to that man. The shop owner, the quiet, senile woman, was the only wife of that man. She stayed in the Heaven Punishment City and sold goods her husband had harvested. Initially, this shop was famous and packed with goods and customers. Since the man had disappeared, it gradually quieted down. Now, the shop was still famous, but it couldn't sell many things. Not many people visited here anymore. People seemed to have forgotten this shop. Feng Rao stopped rummaging through the stuff. She frowned, asking with surprise, Granny Fei Lan, why do you not want to sell it? People called the old woman Fei Lan. Only the powerful characters in the Heaven Punishment City knew her real name. That small shield is a gift my husband gave to me. It is nothing special, but it is a good memento. Fei Lan remembered something, her eyes showing her affection like a vast sea. When he gets tired and comes home, if he finds out that I've lost his gift, he won't feel comfortable. Feng Rao's bright eyes showed that she was moved by the old woman's love. Shi Yang was astounded, looking at Fei Lan with some affection. In their eyes, Fei Lan was a fool who quietly waited in sorrow for a man who had disappeared several thousand years ago in Heaven Punishment City. After so many years, she still loved and longed for him. She even thought that her husband was still alive and that he might come home one day. Although this deep love sounded conservative and foolish, it could touch anybody's heart. Feng Rao was deeply moved. Then forget it. It's okay that you don't want to sell it. How about this stone orb? Will you sell it? The dim blue stone orb was revealed as she opened her white palm. This orb didn't have a beam of energy. In any aspect, it looked like a rare-shaped stone. Nothing in this orb was special enough to make people look at it for more than several seconds. Fei Lan's cloudy eyes observed the dim blue stone orb. She didn't say anything for a moment. Granny Fei Lan, you don't want to sell this broken ball either? Feng Rao was surprised. She started to feel strange. It wasn't the first time Feng Rao visited this shop. Before she had left the Heaven Punishment City, she often wandered here. Usually, toys and trash items in this shop were really cheap. Before today, she had never known that this shop had something that the old woman wouldn't sell. However, Shi Yang had chosen a small shield and Fei Lan said that she didn't want to sell it. And now, she was hesitant in selling this broken stone ball, which made Feng Rao confused. If you don't want to sell it, it's all right, said Shi Yang with a natural look on his face. His eyes still gazed at the stone orb and the small, strange shield. Fei Lan rubbed her eyes, shaking her head. She sighed then mumbled. Take the stone orb. I have to survive anyway. I still have to eat. How many divine crystals do you want? Feng Rao said, taking out some top-quality divine crystals from her fantasy sky ring. In her eyes, that broken stone wasn't worth a top-quality divine crystal. But if Shi Yang liked it, it was worth the price. She intended to give her 10 top-quality divine crystals as she felt sorry for the old woman. Give me the quantity that you think my item is worth. Fei Lan pondered for a while then lifted her head. However, she didn't look at Feng Rao but instead at Shi Yang. Feng Rao was astounded. Shi Yang's eyebrows slightly twitched. He kept silent. After more than 10 seconds, Shi Yang's brows stretched. He took a deep breath then turned to Feng Rao. How many divine crystals did your father give you? 1,000. They're all top quality. Feng Rao felt odd. Give her all of it, Shi Yang lowered his voice. Feng Rao's soft body shivered. Her bright eyes were skeptical and she was very confused. It was just a rare-shaped stone ball. In her eyes, it wasn't worth a coin. The energy of a top-quality divine crystal was enough to refill the energy of a king god realm warrior. A top-grade divine crystal could buy sacred grade pellets, a charming maid, or rent the training yard for half a month in the Heaven Punishment City. 1,000 divine crystals was a big fortune indeed. In the Heaven Punishment City, only pirates with a strong background force could keep such properties. To recruit Shi Yang, Feng Ku had used his foundation capital. Giving away 1,000 divine crystals, he sure was generous. As Feng Rao knew the value of the divine crystal, she was hesitant and suspicious. Give it to her, Shi Yang frowned, repeating his words. Feng Rao didn't hesitate anymore. She slipped the fantasy sky ring off her finger, slowly put it on the counter. She was kind enough to remind the old woman, Granny Fei Lan, this fantasy sky ring keeps 1,000 divine crystals of top quality. Keep it well. Don't show others that you have such a big fortune. If someone else laid eyes on this huge fortune, Fei Lan could fall into trouble because of her true god realm cultivation base. That's why Feng Rao had to remind her. Fei Lan appeared to not listen to her reminder. Her dull eyes were still gazing at Shi Yang. After a long moment, she nodded, handing over the dim blue stone orb, pushing it toward Shi Yang. It belongs to you now. Pausing for a while, she mumbled, it suits you anyway. Thank you, Shi Yang smiled, respectfully put the dim blue stone orb away. He bowed to greet her then turned to Feng Rao. Let's go, we shouldn't disturb her more. Although Feng Rao was curious, she just nodded and said nothing more, following him to leave the shop. Fei Lan's line of sight was fixed on Shi Yang from the moment he entered until the moment he left the shop. She pondered for a while then dozed off again. Why? After they had left the shop, Feng Rao couldn't hold her curiosity anymore. She asked, her eyes confused, 1,000 divine crystals. That is enough to buy a spacious manor in the Heaven Punishment City. Exchanging such a fortune for a trash stone, was it worth it? I wasn't sure if it was worth it or not, smiled Shi Yang. But seeing her hesitate, I think, perhaps I've picked a treasure. She didn't want to sell the orb because she knew its value. When you gave her 1,000 divine crystals, I didn't see her get excited. She looked begrudging, though. Do you know why? Why? Because she thought that it was too few. Few. She thought that 1,000 divine crystals were not enough. I think that she considered our payment small. Otherwise, she would have stirred up. She even looked begrudging. Anyway, she doesn't need that orb. That is why she sold it to me. Perhaps, she has another reason. Shi Yang wasn't so sure. He vaguely felt that Fei Lan should know the magic of that small shield. She might know about the blood mark, too. The reason why Fei Lan agreed to sell the stone orb was possibly related to the fact that he could recognize the value of the small shield. Of course, all of these were just his assumptions. Shi Yang didn't dare confirm, but he had some strange premonitions. Feng Rao wasn't a fool. She was skeptical because she couldn't see what magic the stone ball could do. She thought it was just a trash stone. However, after Shi Yang had explained, she understood immediately. She felt a little bit shocked. You meant, that stone orb has something strange? It has a subtle connection with my star power Upanishad. I can say that it's not just a normal item. I think that it's worth the price of 1,000 divine crystals, and it could be more than that, Shi Yang said after contemplating for a while. Feng Rao's eyes brightened up. You mean? Granny Fei Lan knows how valuable the orb is. I think she knows, nodded Shi Yang. But she has only the true God realm cultivation base. If she knows, why doesn't she tell people about the stone and give it a higher price? You should ask her. I can't think of an answer. They were discussing in a low tone. Gradually, they walked into a desolate alley, where they saw no one on the street. Shi Yang halted. Feng Rao stopped next to him. The wind ceased. A heavy pressure slowly pressed down from all directions. It felt like a wind wall was pressing down to restrain people. Wind power Upanishad. Shi Yang and Feng Rao exchanged looks. They became solemn, quietly gathering energy in their bodies. From the strange pressing wind, they knew that the incomer had a strong realm. He should be a warrior at the original God realm. Shi Yang's negative energy burst out instantly. His god body appeared, his eyes turning garnet. The negative aura rolled like a windstorm. Shi Yang's dead domain expanded, tearing off the pressure from the wind. Feng Rao didn't say anything. She sat down, closing her eyes to sense the commotion of the wind. She mouthed, using her sound power Upanishad to disorder the threatening force from the opponent's god domain. The incomer had the original god realm and used wind power. He had prepared well with his intimidating power. If they made a mistake, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. Their soul altars could be smashed, too. Both Shi Yang and Feng Rao were experienced warriors. When they noticed that something was wrong, they immediately gathered all their forces to resist. They didn't dare linger for even a moment. While they were ready to encounter the opponent, a gust of wind shot over from one end of the alley and covered one of them. Chapter 834, The Frightful Invisible Hand. Chapter 834, The Frightful Invisible Hand. The wind blew over like a dust tornado. A grey shadow was suspended in the middle of the tornado, but they couldn't see it clearly. They could only feel a powerful but evil force gushing from him. The grey wind hissed. The massive pressure increased several times all of a sudden. Instantly, the rock walls of this small alley cracked and exploded. Chips of rock shattered like an intense shower. The wind howled ear-piercingly, running directly into Shi Yang's sea of consciousness like a sharp blade. Shi Yang could feel pain from the god domain. At this moment, he couldn't even gather his consciousness. His thoughts couldn't be sent to the soul altar. His god soul floated as if it was drawn out of the soul altar above the sea of consciousness. In the wind howl, the immense pressure compressed the air. The smell of burning objects invaded the air. Rocks fell like rain. With energy given by the wind, those chips became as heavy as mountains or 10,000 cattle and as thick like the sea. Inside the wind god domain, gusts screamed, making everything blurred. The whole sky became an immense grey area. It looked like the mighty heaven was about to rip off everything. Confine! Shi Yang screamed almost crazily. His voice struck the high sky, his face ferocious. Countless space ripples expanded from his god body, raising like the tide of the sea. Shortly, they formed a formation. The sounds of crack echoed in the air like someone was using invisible chains to lash the surroundings. Even the voice couldn't be sent through. Feng Rao sat neatly next to Shi Yang with closed eyes. Her visage was tranquil like water, but her delicate curved eyebrows furrowed. Her lips parted as she spurted out syllables as sharp as swords. They then fiercely shot towards the blurry shadow in the middle of the grey tornado. Boom boom boom. Grumbling sounds echoed continually. Feng Rao used her sound power Upanishad to bombard that tornado. A big part of the grey dust vanished. However, the wind had just halted for a while before starting to revolve fast again. The furious wind rolled, sweeping through everywhere and cleaning each square inch around the man. As Shi Yang had just gathered his energy to condense the god domain and space confinement, his attack was immediately torn apart by the gust of wind. The tornadoes that naked eyes could see rolling in the sky like the axes, flew towards them from every direction. The grating, ear-piercing howl brought the energy that nothing could destroy, moving very quickly. The stone tiles on the ground of the small alley rolled up into the sky. The tornado then ground them into dust. The walls exploded and shattered. The tornadoes covered everything as if they wanted to smash all creatures in the area. Feng Rao closed her eyes, frowning while both of her hands made hand seals. She was screaming and shouting unceasingly. Her sound seals exploded then condensed into lightning ribbons, stabbing the grey tornado. However, they couldn't get through the thick tornado, and she couldn't harm the one hovering inside. A gap between two realms was the distance between humans and gods. This distance couldn't be made up by simply using energy. They couldn't attack the other's god domain or find a weak spot to attack. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The three bone thorns appeared in the tornado, trying to attack that shadow. Wind blades appeared in the void like a sea of sharp sabers. The three bone thorns could only break some wind blades, but not the person controlling the winds. Boom. Just like the grumbling thunder pressing down, the intimidating invisible wind ropes sprang forward. Shortly after, Shi Yang and Feng Rao were tied tightly. They couldn't even wiggle. The thumb-sized grey wind ropes slowly revealed themselves, lashing around the two like securing the leaf rice rolls. The fierce screaming of the wind suddenly stopped. The vague figure in the tornado slowly emerged. Fan Yi. Feng Rao couldn't hold in her shouting. You dare come to the Heaven Punishment City? Do you really think that the Heaven Punishment City is a desolate place? That man was Fan Yi from the Nice Star Chamber of Commerce, a warrior at the first sky of original God realm. He had fought Russell in the past, but he was defeated. This wasn't too long time ago, but he dared to visit the Heaven Punishment City. Now, he wanted to capture Shi Yang and Feng Rao. This man was brave enough to break the rules of the Heaven Punishment City. What do your Heaven Punishment City's rules have to do with me? Fan Yi's visage was cold and harsh. He said with disdain, we, the Nice Star Chamber of Commerce, always wanted to clean up the Heaven Punishment City. You are the dirty scumbags of this star area. You will be eradicated one day. To me, Heaven Punishment City is a city to be destroyed soon. Why should I follow their rules? Among the three big forces in the raging Flamestar area, the Nice Star Chamber of Commerce had the greatest resentment towards the land of God punishment. They always wanted to sweep up the pirates. The Nice Star Chamber of Commerce was the biggest chamber of commerce in the raging Flamestar area with strong forces and large business deals. The pirates of the land of God punishment were their archenemies. Those pirates often robbed the Nice Star Chamber of Commerce's vessels and sold their stolen goods in the Heaven Punishment City, which resulted in tremendous damage to their profits. If the land of God punishment hadn't had so many hiding spots that the soul consciousness could sense, the Nice Star Chamber of Commerce would have already attempted to clean this massive base of pirates. You're attacking two juniors like us. Do you think you're that good? If you have the guts, you should find Russell to take revenge. He's in the city, said Feng Rao with rage. I will. Russell won't escape his death. He must die. No doubt about it. Fan Yi beamed a faint smile. But you too have your own value. Where's the empty fantasy crystal? The empty fantasy crystal is a precious item. We had spent a lot to buy it. We can't afford to let a kid steal it. Pausing for a while, Fan Yi glared at Feng Rao. I heard that Feng Ku cherishes you so much. I wonder if he will use the star map to exchange it for your life. I will give Feng Ku time to consider. When time's up and he doesn't want to exchange the star map for you, don't blame me. While talking, Fan Yi stepped toward Shi Yang and Feng Rao. Swoosh. A gust swept through. A cut suddenly appeared on Shi Yang's neck, just a line away from his artery. A wind blade appeared between Fan Yi's fingers. He said coldly, I want to know where the empty fantasy crystal is. Shi Yang's eyes were garnet. He looked at Fan Yi, parting his lips. I broke it. Fan Yi changed his face. The wind blade between his fingers flew out to cut the artery on his neck. Boom. Just like a collapsing mountain, a ruthless force shot out from Shi Yang's body like an erupting volcano. The ash-grey ropes were broken instantly. Shi Yang had urged the power of immortal demon blood in his body. At this moment, Shi Yang became a wild beast that was breaking out of its confinement. His momentum was furious and intimidating. Light sparkled in his garnet eyes. The dead Upanishad was urged. Negative energy turned into a massive dead seal striking towards Fan Yi. The dead seal was like a giant bloody hand of death. The pungent, thick smell of blood it brought seemed to not disperse easily. It looked like a palm that could smash the whole dome of the sky. The ferocious, formidable energy gushed out together with negative emotions. They affected Fan Yi's soul altar before he could attack Shi Yang. Then, Fan Yi had a hallucination of himself standing in a blood sea. His face became sinister, as his murderous aura vented out furiously. Bang! The sky-towering tornado appeared, impacting the dead seal that looked like the death's giant hand. The earth and heaven were shaken. The earth-shattering energy had smashed Fan Yi's barrier into pieces. Beams of energy shelled everywhere else. The tall buildings of more than 100 meters around them exploded by the shockwaves. Many warriors were hurt. Fan Yi was still hovering in the air, but he was trembling hard. His face turned into an unhealthy red hue. Shi Yang had condensed his immortal demon blood to create the dead seal, which had the mountain-splitting power. Fan Yi got hit. His barrier created by his god domain was shattered. At the moment the barrier was torn, Fan Yi knew that the experts of the Heaven Punishment City would come quickly, as they must have found the tremendous commotion of this battle. It was impossible to confine Shi Yang to ask for the empty fantasy crystal's whereabouts. This was also true for capturing Feng Rao to ask Feng Ku about the star map. Shi Yang panted, his face savage like an enraged beast that was smelling the scent of blood. Blood light sparkly gloriously in his garnet eyes. The immortal demon blood boiled in his body, generating the endless energy, which screamed to get out. Negative energy in his acupuncture points overflowed torrentially, combining perfectly with the god domain generated by the dead power Upanishad. As the dead power was moving in his soul altar, a blood sea vaguely appeared by his body. The thick scent of blood permeated the sky, covering every creature. The ability to suck the vitality from creatures arose silently. While he didn't recognize it, light dots emerged from Fan Yi's body, slowly flying toward Shi Yang's god body in the center of the god domain. Break! Shi Yang took a deep breath. His congested arms tore forcefully, ripping off the wind ropes on Feng Rao's body, releasing her from Fan Yi's wind confinement. Seems like I will have to kill you all. Fan Yi considered for a few seconds before his face turned dark. He wanted to use his realm advantage to kill Shi Yang and Feng Rao. Since he had the original God Realm cultivation base, he hadn't used all of his power in this battle yet. As he confirmed that he couldn't capture Shi Yang and Feng Rao, he was enraged. He decided to kill them all. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The wind rose again. The tornado that could tear the sky formed near Fan Yi. At this moment, Fan Yi seemed to turn into a massive tornado, covering the entire area. His formidable wind power moved furiously. It was several times stronger than the previous ones. Fan Yi continually urged his energy as he wanted to kill them all. However, right when he wanted to open his mouth to announce Shi Yang and Feng Rao's death sentence, he discolored. Both of his hands clutched his neck. His eyes showed extreme fear. His god body was sliding backward rapidly and eccentrically, breaking more than 10 stone buildings. However, He was still being dragged away. It seemed like there was an invisible hand strangling him and dragging him into the void. Fan Yi couldn't do anything. His wind energy scattered fast. Fan Yi had the first sky of original God realm. But under that force, he looked like a dead dog that was unable to wiggle. Shi Yang and Feng Rao were shocked to see Fan Yi get dragged further away until they couldn't see him anymore. "Let's go." Feng Rao cleared her mind, shouting. She held his hand, dashing crazily towards the blue demon's base. Shi Yang staggered and flew after her. However, after being baffled for a while, he turned around to look at the general direction of Fei Lan's shop with a complex countenance. Chapter 835, The Mysterious Hermetic Expert. Chapter 835, The Mysterious Hermetic Expert. Fan Yi, an expert at the first sky of original God realm, was dragged to somewhere out of their sights. They didn't know whether he was still alive or not. The small alley was now a ruin. Smoke and dust swirled in the air as it hadn't dispersed yet. Warriors yelled and cursed, walking through piles of rocks. They shouted while trying to find the one who caused the damage to take revenge. At this moment, to prevent themselves from being ambushed by Fan Yi, Shi Yang and Feng Rao were moving quickly towards the blue demon's base. Dust and rock chips still scattered in the air. Bai Tian, the great commander of the Underworld League, Bai Ru, and Alad were standing in a small cottage at the other end of the ruined alley. They looked at the cloud of dust with heavy and yet strange eyes. That sudden force was so terrifying. Alad took a deep breath, his face pale. He instinctively looked at Bai Tian standing next to him. "Master, was that Feng Ku?" "Feng Ku?" Bai Tian shook his head, his in the blue demons discussing the star map. "He doesn't have free time now. Moreover, he doesn't have such power. Even for me, if I wanted to subdue Fan Yi and make him lose the strength to resist like that, I wouldn't be able to. No need to mention Feng Ku." Although they were both at the second sky of original God realm, Bai Tian considered himself one level stronger than Feng Ku. His confidence stemmed from his strength. Even Bai Tian, who was at the second sky of original God realm, couldn't explain the immense force that they had just witnessed. How strong was that person? Alad and Bai Ru contemplated, their faces solemn. "Seems like it's true. The rumor saying that the Heaven Punishment City has some hermetic experts." Bai Tian's eyes sparkled with strange light. He continued faintly, "Although the three big forces have joined hands to sweep over the Heaven Punishment City many times, we can't uproot the space pirates here. Besides the forbidden lands around, perhaps, there's another reason." Hearing him, Alad and Bai Ru paled. "Father, are you saying that someone stronger than you is staying in this area?" Bai Ru shouted slightly, her face disbelieving. "Only Du Tianji of the Divine Nation has the third sky of original God realm cultivation base. In the Raging Flamestar area, we have the only other three at the third sky of original God realm, right? We've known just the three of them," Bai Tian frowned, "but we don't know who is hiding. Who can be sure that there aren't more?" Warriors in his team discolored in fright. "Anyway, what surprised me wasn't the hermit in the Heaven Punishment City." Bai Tian contemplated for a while, then lowered his voice. "I'm more surprised at Shi Yang's real competence." As he said that, Bai Ru and Alad were shaken, remembering his strength. Obviously, he didn't use all of his powers in the battle with Black Horn. Since Fan Yi wanted to kill him, he had stirred up the potential of that young man. He had forced him to show his real competence. I think that even if the hermetic expert didn't give him a hand, he still had the strength to battle. Bai Tian took a deep breath, divine light shooting out from his eyes. In fact, he has only the second sky of King God Realm cultivation base, while Feng Rao has the first sky of original God Realm. The young man is incredibly strong. We must recruit him to our team. Alad and Bai Ru nodded solemnly. Shi Yang and Feng Rao flew rapidly towards Feng Ku's manor in the Heaven Punishment City. Seeing his grand palace, they finally calmed down. In this place, the other experts also felt the commotions of a battle inside the Heaven Punishment City. They paused their meeting and came to the training yard where Shi Yang and Black Horn had battled, discussing clamorously. As soon as Shi Yang and Feng Rao appeared, they drew the attention of everyone else. Feng Ku on the stone platform still sensed something with his eyes closed. He seemed to not notice that Shi Yang and Feng Rao were back. Master Russell, your best friend Fan Yi is in the Heaven Punishment City. He attacked us. Shi Yang shouted when he arrived and hadn't had time to steady himself. Russell's face got colder then became glorious with the brutal deed. I could feel the familiar energy. It is him. This is excellent. His figure melted like the quicksand merging into the ground. He disappeared shortly to find Fan Yi in the city. Feng Ku opened his eyes, his eyelids twitching. Father, Fan Yi appeared while we were walking down the street. He wanted to capture me to blackmail you. When we were about to fall, someone saved us discreetly. Feng Rao explained the situation simply. Feng Ku listened to her attentively. Until she finished, he nodded. You guys go have a rest. I'm going to search for Fan Yi's whereabouts in the city. I won't let him go comfortably. Are you all right? Bloody slaughterer Ka Tuor quietly approached Shi Yang from the crowd of the pirate leaders. I'm okay, Shi Yang smiled, nodding to greet the others before leaving with Feng Rao. We expected earlier that experts of the three forces would try to interfere. It is not strange that Fan Yi came here. Anyway, he was a bit hurried. Ka Tuor took a deep breath. He pondered for a while then waved his hand. I'll call it a day. You guys should prepare yourself. In the coming days, I'll summon you guys again for a detailed plan. After they bid farewell and gave some advice, the leaders of the pirates left. Feng Ku returned to his secret chamber and sent his message. Not long afterward, Feng Rao entered the chamber after she had arranged everything for Shi Yang. This secret chamber was sealed with many layers of barriers and restrictions. No one could eavesdrop their conversation. Little Rao, you said that someone had helped you guys when you were in trouble. Do you know who that person was? Feng Ku asked with a serious countenance. No, I don't. Feng Rao shook her head. That person seemed to grab Fan Yi's neck and drag him away. Fan Yi couldn't even resist. It was so terrible. Feng Ku put on a serious face. That person is much more dangerous than what you think. Even your father. I don't have such powers. Feng Rao was scared. Is that person at the third sky of original God realm? How could it be? Since when did our Heaven Punishment City have people with such mighty powers? It's possible, Feng Ku forced a smile. There is something that you don't know. Throughout several thousand years, every time the Heaven Punishment City met a disaster or there were enemies that couldn't be resisted, we always solved it inexplicably. The last time it happened was 500 years ago. The headmaster of the Li family of the 9-star Chamber of Commerce came here, intending to sweep away the Heaven Punishment City and destroy the pirates. When that happened, the Heaven Punishment City bore heavy damage. The city was destroyed. Many pirates got killed. At the moment we thought that the Heaven Punishment City was about to be demolished, the headmaster of the Li family died for an unknown reason. His experts were also killed unknowingly. Feng Ku took another deep breath. The Heaven Punishment City should have collapsed. But the Li family's experts all died and we won the war easily. Pausing for a moment, Feng Ku said with a vague countenance on his face, it has happened similarly several times. Feng Rao was astounded. Father, are you saying that we have an invincible hermetic expert in the Heaven Punishment City? Someone that you can't even sense? If that person's realm is higher than mine, I won't be able to feel anything when he or she conceals his or her aura, nodded Feng Ku. The leaders of the three big forces also know about this person. That's why we were able to stand strong for so long. This mysterious person is the reason why we have not been uprooted yet. Otherwise, do you think that the three forces would have spared our lives? Wouldn't they have tried to come and destroy us one more time? Feng Rao kept silent. Today, that person suddenly attacked Fan Yi to help you and Shi Yang. However, I'm not sure if this person wanted to help you or Shi Yang. Feng Ku frowned then asked, who did you guys meet? Jester, Ka Fu, and Granny Fei Lan. And, he had left somewhere before that. I think he went to meet someone, but I didn't accompany him. I don't know who he had met, answered Feng Rao. Jester and Feng Ku, it would be impossible for them to have helped you. Fei Lan. She has only the third sky of true God realm. She looks old and quiet. I have never seen anything strange surrounding her. Her mind seems to not be lucid. It's impossible regardless. Perhaps it was someone that Shi Yang had met. So that person had helped you guys because of him. Feng Ku changed his visage. He pondered for a while, then continued. He's not a simple man. Little Rao, if you can bind him with your love and make him work for us, he will be of great support to us in the future. Feng Rao smiled naturally. Yeah, you should go. I need to think more. Feng Ku didn't ask further, tenderly telling his daughter to leave. Feng Rao left immediately. Shi Yang lay on his side on the windowsill in a spacious stone room. He was watching people moving in the Heaven Punishment City while he caressed the blue stone orb he bought from Fei Lan's shop. His eyes gradually brightened up. A flow of soul consciousness was sent to the blue stone orb. The stone orb didn't have any halo, as it was just a natural stone ball that had no energy fluctuation. Shi Yang frowned, but he didn't hasten. He observed the stone orb for a while. All of a sudden, he urged the star power Upanishad. His soul altar moved slowly as he used the energy of the star to see what was inside the stone orb. At the same time, his chest sparkled with star dots. Those light dots then flew out like fireflies, entering the stone orb. The star power moved as his soul was carving the trajectory of the stars in the sky. He seemed to create a subtle and magical connection with the starry sea of the sky. After the star energy had been poured into the stone orb, it seemed like the defense inside the orb was cleaned up. Gradually, finger-sized small islets appeared on the orb. Boom! Shi Yang's sea of consciousness was shaking uncontrollably. Starlight started to lash around his left hand, the hand that was holding the stone ball. His soul altar had formed a subtle and magical connection with the ball. The starlight in the immense starry sea showered like rain, gathering inside the stone orb. Dazzling light suddenly shot out from the islets in the stone orb with a terrifying piercing power. Boom, boom, boom. When the light hit the rock wall, it pierced through the wall. The window where he was standing exploded. His spacious stone room was prickled as many beams of light shined in different directions. The light pierced through the wall as if someone was pinching and breaking the dried tree branches. Screams of fright and astonishment arose under the room. Many warriors of Feng Ku's force stormed upstairs to see what was happening. Shi Yang was stunned. His eyes were brighter as he caressed the orb while it continued still shooting light everywhere. The corners of his mouth curved into a smile. Chapter 836, Fusion. Chapter 836, Fusion. The dim blue stone orb was now as dazzling as a star, and it generated a flow of rolling star energy that surged vehemently. Starlight still fell countlessly from the immense star area into the stone orb like rivers flowing into the vast sea. Holding the stone orb, Shi Yang released his star power Upanishad, creating a special connection with the stone orb. All of a sudden, beams of glorious starlight started to swirl around Shi Yang's god body, covering him shortly. At that moment, he looked like a cocoon covered in starlight. His entire body was as brilliant as a diamond that people couldn't directly look at. The silver starlight energy fell from the sky rapidly, flooding the shattered stone chamber and making it look like the room sunk into the galaxy. Feng Ku, Feng Xiao, and Feng Rao went to the place as they had also sensed the tremendous commotion in this room like the other pirates had. They floated outside of Shi Yang's window, peering into the room with great astonishment. A glorious cluster of light bobbed in the galaxy inside the room. It was so blinding that people couldn't look at it very well. The starlight was so magnificent, and it was the most eye-catching star in the sky. The fierce star energy fluctuated in the stone room. Shi Yang's god domain had turned into a miniature version of outer space. It continued to absorb the starlight from the sky, making his god body more terrifyingly dazzling. What's that? Feng Ku's eyes sparkled. She couldn't help but turn to Feng Rao. Shaking her head, Feng Rao was also bewildered. I don't know what's going on. His powers Upanishads include star power. Feng Ku remained silent. Not space power and fire power? Feng Xiao was surprised. He doesn't cultivate fire power. Space power is just one kind of his powers Upanishad, explained Feng Rao. Feng Ku and Feng Xiao were stunned. His comprehending the star Upanishad. At this moment, he shouldn't be disturbed, said Feng Rao uncertainly after being hesitant for a while. Feng Ku nodded. His face darkened as he shouted to people floating near them, "Go away, all of you. Don't bother our little buddy." Those onlookers flew away, listening to him. Shortly after, only Feng Rao, Feng Ku, and Feng Xiao stayed. "Girl, how many secrets does this boy have? Do you know them all?" Feng Ku beamed a forced smile. "I don't know why I always feel that he is very dangerous. Would he be able to ruin our plan?" "I don't know how many secrets he keeps either," Feng Rao shook her head, "but I know that he won't become our enemy." Feng Ku contemplated, staring at Shi Yang for a while, then nodded. "You stay here and watch over him. I have some important stuff to do. Little Xiao, follow me." Then, he and Feng Xiao disappeared. Feng Rao stayed alone in this place, watching Shi Yang while her beautiful eyes twinkled. Starlight cocooned around Shi Yang, making him a shining pupa with fierce starlight power. It seemed like he could affect the galaxy out there, dragging countless beams of starlight to gather within his god body. This condition of his had lasted for a long time. Eventually, starlight stopped falling into the room. The starry sea created by the god domain also disappeared. Finally, Shi Yang's body was revealed. Everything resumed in its normal state. He sat indifferently on the ground, his breathing steady. He closed his eyes like he was cultivating. However, the dim blue stone orb he had held in his hand had disappeared unknowingly. The light cluster of essence chi in his lower abdomen overflowed with starlight. It looked like a marvelous nebula had formed in his lower abdomen, which was radiant under his skin. A long time later, his lower abdomen appeared normal. There was no glorious light anymore. When that happened, Shi Yang woke up. His eyes were now as brilliant as the stars and as dazzling as diamonds. "What happened to you?" Feng Rao asked. Stretching the corners of his mouth, Shi Yang stood up deliberately. He concentrated on his body. His eyes became brighter. The star martial spirit in his heart had disappeared. He didn't see the blue orb anywhere either. However, besides the crystal essence chi ancient tree, he now had an immense nebula containing an extremely brilliant star in the vortex in his lower abdomen. As the star martial spirit and that blue stone orb had absorbed many beams of starlight, they fused together and became the nebula and a star in the vortex in his lower abdomen. This star wasn't just an illusion. Shi Yang used his soul consciousness to sense that it was actually a star in outer space. It was massive with marvelous secrets hidden within. The hazy and immense nebula was a galaxy with many stars scattered around, as well auras of the moon and the sun, which was generated from the star martial spirit that Shi Yang had nurtured for years in his heart. And the dim blue stone orb had become the most dazzling star in this galaxy. As his thought flickered, he gathered the energy. Earth and heaven energy flowed into the vortex in his lower abdomen after being refined, flooding the essence chi ancient tree. At the same moment, invisible starlight from the sky had also gathered when he was urging earth and heaven energy. Beams of starlight rolled into the nebula, congregating with the broken stars and twinkling stars there. His thought changed. Pure essence chi circulated from the essence chi ancient tree. Meanwhile, crystal clear star power was generated from the nebula, turning into a cold and transparent stream of stars running through his veins. A fiercely sharp beam of starlight shot out from his finger. The nebula was spinning inside the vortex in his lower abdomen, becoming another fountain of power like the essence chi ancient tree. He thought that he could absorb and use the energy of the galaxy easily. The misty nebula seemed to be a living thing. It was moving unceasingly in the vortex. Shi Yang felt an abundant energy source from that glorious star. He felt that as soon as he urged the mysterious power of the star Upanishad, he would be able to use a considerable amount of energy from these things. When he gathered energy, the nebula could achieve even more things. It could absorb the starlight in outer space to increase the energy stored in the nebula. He believed that when he fought some warrior and even when his essence chi ancient tree was withered without a single beam of essence chi, He could still use the star energy from the nebula to continue this furious battle. The nebula had become another source of his energy, which could gather and supply energy marvelously. All of these were related to the dim blue stone orb he got from Fei Lan's shop. Shi Yang was sure that the stone ball was a star-class rare treasure. "I'm fine. I feel pretty good. You don't need to worry." Shi Yang smiled and comforted Feng Rao. "It's all right. I'm studying the Star Upanishad. Today, I received something nice. Oh right, I want to find Ka Tuor to do something. After my business with him is done, I will find you. Can I go with you?" Feng Rao asked with hopes. Shaking his head, Shi Yang frowned and said, "Ka Tuor doesn't want people to intrude his private space. Don't worry. I should go there to check on Bao Ao and the others. Your father is busy with the star map. You should stay here to help him. When the leaders gather to depart, I will come with Ka Tuor." "All right then. You should be careful. The land of God punishment is not safe now. Don't let stealthy people ambush you." Feng Rao knew that Shi Yang had something he didn't want her to know. She wasn't dumb enough to ask him though. If you don't need to get out of the city, then don't do that. Outside the city is surely not safe. Barrett doesn't like you. If he knows that you went back out to the city, he will attack you. You should understand this. "Okay, I got it," Shi Yang smiled. "I'll be back soon. Don't worry. Everything will be all right." Then, he sprang out of the room and landed on the large street of the Heaven Punishment City. He blended and disappeared into the crowd shortly. Feng Rao knew that he wanted to take action alone. Naturally, she wouldn't be like the other stupid women sticking on him all day long. Although she was a little bit worried about him, Feng Rao stayed back, frowning and thinking of unexpected things that could happen to him. Shi Yang appeared in the flow of people moving in the city, then accelerated. He crossed and shuttled between some remote streets, going further away. That blue stone ball had helped him big this time. Not only had it helped create the nebula in his lower abdomen, it had also given him the chance to understand the Star Upanishad better. He vaguely felt that perhaps he would enter the third sky of King God realm shortly after using the Star Power Upanishad. Shi Yang continually changed directions. After a while, he stopped. Situated in front of him was a lonesome shop, but it wasn't Ka Fu's. The main door of this shop was open. It was just 1 day ago he had visited this shop. It was Fei Lan's. Fei Lan wasn't in her shop, but the door was open. The spacious shop still had piles of stuff on the counters. Unexpectedly, the small shield was there too. It seemed like Fei Lan didn't treasure it much. Shi Yang raked through the shop, then stopped at that small shield. His eyebrows twitched. He took a deep breath before dragging a wooden stool to have a seat. He closed his eyes to rest, waiting for someone or something. 1 hour later, sounds of limping steps arose from the rear garden of the shop. Fei Lan was walking heavily with her cane, her face senile and quiet. She glared at him with her smoky eyes, talking tenderly. "Why are you here? I told you that I don't sell that shield." Shi Yang stood upright, bowing to her with respect. "Thank you, precursor." "You thank me? For what?" Fei Lan rubbed her eyes, sitting in her usual seat. She slightly lifted her head, revealing her wrinkled neck and asking suspiciously, "Thank you for saving us. And thank you very much for the stone orb." Shi Yang was still bending his body and looking at the old woman with his bright eyes, his face serious. "Save you?" Fei Lan sneered. "You're wrong. My realm is too low. I couldn't save you. That stone ball isn't something precious, either. Anyway, you paid me 1,000 divine crystals. You don't need to thank me. You bought it." Shi Yang smiled, didn't chase her more. "I want to know what that stone orb is. Please enlighten me." "A star nucleus," said Fei Lan. "A star nucleus? What is that?" Shi Yang asked seriously for more information. "You've been cultivating Star Upanishad, but you don't know what a star nucleus is?" Fei Lan's eyes were odd. She pondered for a while, then explained, "Its meaning is just as it is named. The star nucleus is the nucleus of a star, the heart of a star, the source of the star power. The star nucleus functions like the heart of a warrior or the essence chi ancient tree. It's the fountain of powers. Shi Yang's eyes brightened up. Chapter 837, The Big Scarlet Shield. Chapter 837, The Big Scarlet Shield. The star nucleus was a precious star-class treasure, much more precious than the star itself. The most marvelous and exquisite thing of a star in the sky was its nucleus. Fei Lan explained to Shi Yang the mysteries of the star nucleus. She felt strange as Shi Yang didn't know such information even though he was cultivating star power Upanishad. He was stupid in her eyes. Shi Yang was amazed. He beamed a forced smile as he didn't know how to answer her. He came from the Grace mainland where not many people cultivated the star power. He knew nothing about the unusual things related to star power. He had just cultivated his power ignorantly because his knowledge in this aspect was really poor. Even in the raging flame star area, star power Upanishad was also rare. Not many people could successfully cultivate it to the acme. He contemplated for a while then looked at Fei Lan. Precursor, how did you know so clearly about it? And with your cultivation base, how could you know that I'm cultivating star power from the moment you met me? How could you know that the star nucleus is good for me? This confused him a lot. It was also the reason why he thought that Fei Lan was the one who had possibly saved them yesterday. Even the normal warriors of the raging flame star area weren't familiar with the star power Upanishad, let alone an old woman at the true God realm. But she knew he had star power at first glance. Why would he not be suspicious? Even if I haven't eaten pork, I've seen pigs running, okay? Anything strange about it? Fei Lan's misty eyes gradually brightened up. I've been living for so long. Although I can't break through my realm, my knowledge of powers Upanishads is much more profound than yours. Warriors cultivating star power have a distinctive aura. Ordinary people can't sense it. Anyway, it's not strange that I know it. Shi Yang just smiled. He didn't want to probe her further. Anyway, the doubt in his heart couldn't easily leave like that. As Fei Lan didn't want to tell him, he wasn't thick-skinned enough to ask her more. My body has some changes. After hesitating for a while, Shi Yang continued, the star nucleus has fused with my god body. A nebula and a star have been formed in the vortex in my lower abdomen. Could this cause a problem? This is the reason why he comes here. The star nucleus and the star martial spirit had fused into one. Together, they created a marvelous nebula in his lower abdomen, which increased his absorbing star energy more than 5 times. At the same time, he felt so comfortable when using star energy. However, he wasn't sure if any problems could arise from this situation. He was tense and he was worried a lot. Fei Lan's eyes got a bit brighter. She gazed at him, pondering. After a while, she muttered, "You got the nebula." "Yes, I've formed a nebula. But I'm not sure how it was formed. I worry that it can bring some backfire or any danger I should be concerned," answered Shi Yang. "What danger could it be?" Fei Lan pursed her lips. "You lucky boy. You have formed the nebula that easily. Did you know the subtle mysteries of the nebula? Don't worry. It won't harm you. It will fuse perfectly with your star power Upanishad. As the nebula is formed, it means your star Upanishad is on the right track. If you continue cultivating, you will gain excellent attainment. The nebula is similar to the essence chi ancient tree in your body. They are the nuclei of your god body, the fountain of your powers, which are perfect for enhancing your powers." "I got it." Shi Yang felt relaxed. He suddenly calmed down. "Nothing harmful to me, right?" "No. It's a necessary step that everyone who cultivates star Upanishad must experience." Fei Lan gave a faint smile. "Good. Your 1,000 divine crystals are well spent then." "I think so." Shi Yang smiled then quieted down as if he was musing on something. After a while, he turned away and walked to the door and pulled the stone door closed. People from outside wouldn't be able to see what was happening inside the shop now. Fei Lan frowned while looking at him, but she didn't stop him as though she wanted to see what he wanted to do. After closing the door, Shi Yang took a deep breath, his face becoming serious. He walked to Fei Lan, his eyes glaring at the small shield. He lowered his voice. "Precursor, do you know what mysterious lies with that small shield?" Fei Lan's face was calm, not reflecting any strange emotion of hers. She shook her head. "Not really. Can you let me see it?" "I won't buy it, I just want to observe it for a while." "I ask for your permission, Precursor," Shi Yang asked with a sincere and stern countenance. "Why?" Fei Lan furrowed her brows. "Perhaps I can figure something out. Please allow me to do this," Shi Yang was persistent. Fei Lan slowly moved her tired body, frowning, walking toward the pile of miscellaneous stuff. She picked up a small shield. Hesitating for a while, she handed it to Shi Yang. "You can look but you can't take it away. Although this small shield is not a valuable thing, it has a special meaning to me. Don't worry. I'll be careful. I won't take it out of this shop." Shi Yang agreed immediately. He studied the small shield with bright eyes. This small shield was made of an unknown material. It wasn't gold or jade, but it felt so heavy and cold in Shi Yang's hands. There was no pattern or carving on either side of the shield. It looked pretty ordinary. Caressing the small shield, Shi Yang closed his eyes to use his god soul and sense. The soul altar slowly spun. The strange mark on the glabella of the god soul floating above the soul altar slowly appeared. 5 clusters of blood-red clouds were visible as if a strange energy was seeping out. This plain shield didn't glow, but some patterns started to appear on one side of the shield. Then, a mark of blood-red cloud emerged on the outer side of the shield. The 5 clusters of red clouds on the shield and the ones on his god soul's forehead were identical. Although they had no halo or energy fluctuation, they gave the impression of a wicked and eccentric thing. They were like 5 garnet eyes, sneaking on people and making them irritated. Swoosh! A deadly energy bloomed from his fingertip. The gray, misty energy was poured into the blood mark on the shield. Boom! A garnet light shot out from the mark. The small shield buzzed and hissed. Shortly after, the small shield became larger. Now it was 3 meters tall and 2 meters wide. The garnet mark covered one side of the shield, glowing in a blood-red halo. The other side of the shield now had countless exquisite and complex patterns. Apparently, it was a magical formation that hid a wicked energy that couldn't be sensed. A fine handle slowly appeared on this side. It seemed like the handle was here so the user could lift up the shield. A red light that wasn't different from the halo of the blood vein ring radiated from the garnet mark on the shield. 5 clusters of cloud arrayed in a pentagon. From a distance, it looked like a giant, bloody mouth that could swallow all kinds of light. Crack! The massive shield fell, smashing the firm stone ground of the shop. 2/3 of this shield sank into the ground like a sharp sword. Only a small part of it remained visible. Shi Yang was stunned. This massive shield was as heavy as 1,000 cattle. It could be compared to a mountain that was 1,000 meters tall. Shi Yang couldn't hold the shield. The moment it grew larger, it sank directly into the ground. Fei Lan stood behind the counter, her eyes looked heavy with deadly qi. They flashed then resumed the normal status. She looked at him quietly, revealing no strange signs. She didn't say anything, either. She just looked at him quietly and indifferently as though none of this was related to her. Taking a deep breath, Shi Yang reached out to grab the handle of the shield, trying to lift it up. Shi Yang roared. The power of his entire body rocketed. His muscles and veins erupted like the volcano. The pure energy in his body increased massively. Boom! He could only lift the shield 1 meter high before he had to put it down. The shield directly sank deep into the ground, only a small part remaining above the ground. Shi Yang also sank into the ground. Half of his body pierced through the ground as if the rigid ground was a block of tofu that was unable to hold him up. Stone and rock scattered. With the energy in his body, he couldn't lift up the shield, which had just enlarged. It even resulted in his body being pressed into the ground. How heavy was this large shield? Shi Yang was frightened, gasping for his breath. He felt so terrible. At the second sky of King God Realm, his body was tenacious. The energy he could urge could be compared to the peak of the King God Realm warriors. However, he couldn't lift up this shield. Was it even heavier than a 10,000-meter tall mountain? Can it be as heavy as a real star? Shi Yang had an unknown fear in his heart. The user of this shield could control it with ease. He could even use the energy to make the shield fly around. What kind of ability and energy did that user have to control this massive shield? He was sure that even the warriors at the original God Realm like Carthew or Russell couldn't dream about controlling the shield as they pleased. Perhaps Leona could try. But it was unknown whether she could use it or not. Shi Yang was baffled. He dragged himself out of the hole, taking several breaths to wake up his mind. After a while, he looked at Fei Lan, saying nothing. "Don't look at me. I didn't know it would turn out like that. I didn't know this shield could be such a strange thing." Before it transformed, the small shield was relatively light, Fei Lan said. "I saw the blood mark on the shield. I think it is related to me somehow," said Shi Yang seriously. "Yeah, I can see that. If you weren't related to the shield, it would never have transformed." Fei Lan smiled inaudibly. "But I can't sell it to you. You should shrink it and put it back in the pile for me. I'm not interested in your secrets. If you don't want to rob it from me, just leave. I have nothing to tell you." Shi Yang was astounded. Chapter 838, The Dark Blood Sunset. Chapter 838, The Dark Blood Sunset. I'm old, and my realm is low. I just want to live and wait peacefully for my man to come back. I don't want to get involved in unnecessary troubles, said Fei Lan faintly. Okay, I'm sorry for bothering you. Shi Yang took a deep breath, then urged the energy in his body, trying to use the mark on his god soul to connect to the big shield. A blood-red light arose in his sea of consciousness. At the same time, the big shield also radiated a blood-red halo. In the next moment, it resized into its pocket version. The blood mark on it disappeared. The shield was now just a normal item. Shi Yang picked up the small shield silently. This time, it was as light as a feather. He carefully placed it back on the pile of the miscellaneous items. He turned to Fei Lan and bowed to thank her before turning around and walking away. Fei Lan stooped and didn't care about him, as if she had already dozed off. Getting out of the shop, Shi Yang frowned while standing on the empty street. He turned around and looked at the shop again and sighed, shaking his head before leaving. After several steps, he saw a graceful figure covered entirely. Even the face was in black garments. This person was walking towards him. The person in black also saw him. The gentle body paused for a while before crossing him and walking towards Fei Lan's shop. Shi Yang was surprised. He turned around to look at that figure in black. He frowned as he felt that something was familiar about that person. However, as he couldn't see that person's face or realm, he didn't assume much and just headed to Ka Fu's shop. After Shi Yang had left, the one in black also stopped, turning around and looking at the direction he had disappeared in as though this person was trying to be sneaky. Shortly after, that person in black continued her trip to Fei Lan's shop. As Fei Lan was closing her eyes resting, she was shaken all of a sudden. Her misty eyes brightened for the first time. After the one in black entered the shop, the thick stone door closed inaudibly. The entire shop fell into a lightless and gloomy ambience. This person didn't seem to like the light. This person pulled her black veil off her head, revealing her frightful appearance. Her dark green eyes looked at Fei Lan, talking in a soft tone. "Auntie, you've just met him?" She was the leader of the 5 feudal vassals of the Dark Firmament Divine Nation. She was the regimental commander of the Bloody Legion, Madame Leona. Fei Lan sat behind her counter, her face unchanged. She nodded and said, "Yes. This is the second time." Leona's eyes brightened. "Auntie, then, have you told him yet?" "Told him?" Fei Lan's face was mocking. "Why do I have to tell him? What does it matter to me?" Leona frowned, looking at the broken ground inside the shop and the small shield atop the pile of miscellaneous items. "That shield belongs to him. You should give it to him." "Why should I give it to him?" Fei Lan gave a light snort. "This is what Uncle asked you to do." "It was his wish," said Leona in a heavy tone. "It's your dark blood sunset family's mission. It's not my mission. I have nothing to do with it." Phelan put on a cold visage. "When that devil gave me this that year, he didn't say that I had to fulfill the mission of your dark blood sunset. He hasn't married me. I'm not a woman of the dark blood sunset's family. So that kid and I are not related. And as for you, your family has only you now. That devil has disappeared for several thousand years. Your father and the others are gone. Do you still want to keep that vow? As long as one of our dark blood sunset family's members is still alive, the vow is still there." "I will never forget it," said Leona with a stern visage. "Uncle couldn't marry you because he didn't return alive. If he was able to return, he would have surely married you. You are a member of the dark blood sunset family no matter how hard you try to deny it. I call you auntie and you have never objected to it. It means that you accepted it. If you did accept it, you should follow the vow of the dark blood sunset. You should return to Shi Yang what belongs to him." Phelan was silent. After a long moment, she sighed weakly. "Even if I give it to him now, he won't be able to use it. His realm is still too low." The scar on Leona's cheek twitched as if she was smiling. "I know that auntie won't just stand and stare. Otherwise, you wouldn't have helped him and you would have let Fan Yi die." Recently, Feng Ku and Russell tried their best to find Fan Yi. They had almost turned the Heaven Punishment City and Land of God Punishment upside down. Still, they couldn't find Fan Yi. No one knew that of the Fan family, the strongest family in the 9-star Chamber of Commerce, the original God Realm expert was killed. It has nothing to do with him. "I hate the Fan family. Fan Yi appeared near me. Well, he wanted to die so I had to fulfill his wish," snorted Phelan. "Haha, auntie, you don't need to be so obstinate. If you didn't want to follow his wish, you wouldn't have tried to protect the Heaven Punishment City. My uncle had established this city. You aren't allowing anyone to destroy it because you know that if my uncle was still alive, he wouldn't want to see the Heaven Punishment City destroyed by the hands of the bandits," smiled Leona. "I've lived in this place long enough not to want to move anymore." Phelan pouted her lips, talking neither angrily nor indifferently. "Forget it. It's okay if you don't want to admit it. I'm here to ask for your help." The star map appeared. Shi Yang brought it out of the Purgatory Star. "As soon as he arrived, he met you twice. It's destined. You can't escape your fate." The Imperial Masters of the Dark Firmament Divine Nation were all the ancestors of the Dark Blood Sunset family. "My big uncle disappeared while trying to find where the star map leads to. Don't you want to see what's there? Perhaps you can find Uncle's body." Pausing for a moment, Leona added, "if he did die there." "You mean that devil hasn't died yet?" Phelan was shocked. "Nobody has ever seen his skeleton. With his realm and competence, even if you see his corpse, it doesn't mean that he vanished," said Leona faintly. "If he hasn't died yet, why didn't he come to me? It's been several thousand years already. Oh, this bastard. If he isn't dead and he didn't show his face, I will not let him live at ease." Phelan's eyes sparkled with brutal light. "I guess he is reluctant for some reason. Maybe he's confined somewhere, waiting for us to unchain him." Leona just smiled. "You got a silver tongue, girl. People from your dark blood sunset family are all lunatics and swindlers." "I don't believe you," snorted Phelan. "It's all right. You can believe what you want. Before that kid leaves, I will stay in the Heaven Punishment City. When you make up your mind, auntie, you come see me. With your powers, I think that no one could hide the person you want to see in the Land of God Punishment," said Leona indifferently. She faded into the dark then vanished into thin air, leaving no trace of aura. Phelan fell into silence. She frowned, but no one knows what she's thinking. Shi Yang went to Ka Fu's shop. Bloody slaughterer Ka Tuor was there. "Brother, you're back." Ka Tuor laughed. "Brother, you're a genius. Black Horn was no match for you. I'm totally convinced now. After this battle, you're no longer some anonymous junior. Everyone in Heaven Punishment City is talking about your title and stories. Oh yes, you're dangerous. No wonder my big brother admires you a lot." I finally got it, Ka Fu also added. How are Bao Ao and the other two? Good. Their powers are about to be restored fully. They are all feeling well. After their time of suffering, their realms seem to be progressing very quickly. I can tell that they will break through the new realm soon, Ka Tuor complimented honestly. When Bao Ao, Jie, and Bo Ruo were brought to him, they were so weak. After using pellets and divine crystals, their energies were restored quickly. Their realms were also enhanced. They were in the soul transformation process as they had to calm down and learn the essence of their powers. Ka Tuor had a good intuition. He knew that those three people's innate endowment was more than amazing. If they had enough time, they could break through the new realm shortly. Even if they had to stay in the Grace mainland where the energy had been drained, they could still easily become the top characters. Since they arrived in the Raging Flamestar area with sufficient energy supplies, their talents started to shine like someone who cleaned up the dust covering the pearls. Where are they? Asked Shiyang. They are moved to my lair, a forbidden place outside of the land of God punishment. They're safe. The Heaven Punishment City is dangerous these days. They couldn't stay there for a long period. Don't worry. I will ask my people to take care of them. Ka Tuor pounded his chest affirmatively. As Shiyang had exchanged the star map for the other three's lives, they knew how deep the relationship was between them. Ka Tuor took Bao Ao's team away. He wanted to do Shiyang a favor. On the other hand, he wanted something to depend on to negotiate with Shiyang. If Shiyang wanted to deal with Ka Tuor, the people he kept as a safeguard would keep Shiyang from acting recklessly. Although this made Ka Tuor look generous, his plan was close-knit. Your people. Shiyang's face was cold. Your men aren't all loyal to you. Last time, one of your men almost killed me. Listening to him, Ka Tuor was embarrassed. No, that won't happen this time. You don't need to worry. Why did you leave? It's good to stay at Foam Kuz. This place of mine isn't safe. If Barrett wanted to kill you, I wouldn't be able to help. What do you know about Fei Lan? Asked Shiyang all of a sudden. Fei Lan? Ka Tuor frowned as he didn't know this person. The owner of the oldest shop in the Heaven Punishment City. Dage, you don't often stay in the Heaven Punishment City, so you don't know her. Ka Fu smiled and explained. I've heard that Fei Lan has been staying in the land of God punishment even before the Heaven Punishment City was established. Her realm isn't high and she's a little bit freaky, too. She doesn't talk to people much. Not many people know her. I don't either. Ka Fu, please deliver 10,000 top-quality divine crystals to Fei Lan's shop for me, Shiyang pondered for a while then asked. 10,000 crystals. Ka Fu screamed, even if I have spent 10 years, I wouldn't have earned that much. Do as you're told. Why are you babbling there? Bloody slaughterer Ka Tuor rolled his eyes, yelling at his brother. Ka Fu retracted his neck, nodded begrudgingly. His face looked like he was attending a funeral. He felt so painful, going to Fei Lan's shop to give her free divine crystals. Why? Bloody slaughterer Ka Tuor asked carefully after his brother had left. She's one of us, Shiyang answered deliberately. Chapter 839, A Knot in the Heart. Chapter 839, A Knot in the Heart. She's one of us. Bloody slaughterer Ka Tuor gawked, thinking that Shiyang was kidding. He smiled gingerly, his face odd. Fei Lan was the oldest person in the land of God punishment. No one denied this. However, she had only the true God realm, right? She was slow and looked like she was about to pass away in any minute. Compared to Shiyang, they contrasted immensely. No matter how hard Ka Tuor tried to rationalize it, he couldn't relate Fei Lan to Shiyang. These two people weren't in the same world. Yeah, she should be one of us, nodded Shiyang seriously. Ka Tuor wanted to cry. Why should she be one of us? Impossible. Brother, is something wrong with you? No, nothing is wrong here. Shiyang rose the corner of his mouth. I think she had attacked Fan Yi. She's also the person who has been protecting the land of God punishment and the Heaven Punishment City for several thousand years. Ka Tuor was dumbstruck, looking at Shi Yang as if he was looking at a monster. Fan Yi has the original god realm, right? Not many people in the Heaven Punishment City could fight him. And I have never heard that the Heaven Punishment City had a secret guard. Senior, you're going to give her 10,000 top-quality divine crystals because you think she is one of us? This is too sheer bull. I'm not sure whether she would accept it or not. I just want to show my respect. Shi Yang didn't explain in details. And you, next time you see her, you should show respect too. You shouldn't look down on her. Shi Yang spoke seriously. Ka Tuor held a forced smile, nodded his head begrudgingly. All right, you're my senior. It's right if you say it's right. Although he said so, he didn't buy it. 10,000 divine crystals. How many years did he have to rob to earn that money back? He suddenly regretted it. He shouldn't have let his brother deliver the money like that. The headquarters of the Black Curtain Pirates, Heaven Punishment City. Master, we got news. That kid had left Feng Ku's base to go to Ka Fu's shop. Inside a spacious stone hall, a pirate kneeled down, reporting with respect. Inside the hall, two people were sitting neatly. They were Barrett and Black Horn, his vice chief. They were the two top leaders of the Black Curtain. The Black Curtain was the strongest pirate force in the raging Flamestar area. They had so many hotshots with a strong background. They also had a position in the Heaven Punishment City. Barrett and his vice chief Black Horn were the infamous heroes in the land of God Punishment. Since their debut many years ago, they had rarely failed. But now Black Horn was defeated. Dismissed, Barrett waved his hand. The pirate kneeling on the ground immediately went out of the hall. Barrett, do we really need to do that? Defeat means defeat. I admit that I was defeated. I have nothing to regret. That kid is quite the character. At the second sky of King God Realm, he beat me. I'm convinced, said Black Horn in a loud and frank tone. He didn't look distressed. He continued excitedly. His excellent. Since he now has such mighty power, he will be more dangerous in the future. Oh right, who is that kid? How did he know Feng Rao? Shut up. Barrett was so enraged he got angry. You lost. You should be ashamed. And how about me? I lost my Feng Rao. Just a woman, Black Horn teased him. With your powers and tricks, if you want women, you can find all kinds if you want. Why do you need to hold on to Feng Rao? Black Horn hesitated for a while then added, honestly, I don't want you to have any relationship with that woman. It has been so many years since we've put forth everything strenuously. How much blood have we shed to have our current attainment? If you marry Feng Rao, what should our brothers do? Should we all follow Feng Ku? That old man isn't okay for us to follow. He's too old. His realm can't be progressed fast enough. We won't have a bright future going with him. We're still young. If we get more time, the Heaven Punishment City will be ours soon. You fool. You don't know what is happening. To you, women are just goods that you can buy or tools you use to vent out your lust. You will never experience what I am experiencing now. Barrett took a deep breath. To me, Feng Rao has been my dream since I was young. When I met her that year, I swore that I would have to marry her. She is a knot in my heart. If she hadn't emerged in my life, it would have been all right. But now that she's back, if I can't fulfill the dream of my younger self, it will affect my realm seriously. Listening to him, Black Horn finally understood. He became solemn. So you must get Feng Rao at any cost. I must. As long as I get to marry her, even if I have to give her up later, I will be able to accomplish the dream of my younger self. I can untie the knot in my heart. But if I can't have her, I will feel very irritated and annoyed. Barrett's eyes sparkled with brutal light. That kid is an obstacle. I want to crush him. He's in the Heaven Punishment City, and the city has rules. If we kill him, everybody will know who committed such a deed. Are you going to break the rules and have people laugh at your face? Black Horn advised, hold it for a while. He will join the expedition to the new star area. We can find a chance to kill him along the way. I can't wait for that. Barrett snorted. People made the rules of the Heaven Punishment City, right? Wait until I've reached the second sky of original God realm. I will make that immortal Feng Ku leave his position. I will create new rules. Who can hinder me then? Do you really want to kill him? Black Horn suddenly got up and contemplated before saying, if you are going to be so persistent, you must be careful. That kid isn't easy to deal with. If you can't kill him in one strike and you have someone else to assist you, there will be trouble. Don't lose this chance for nothing. At that time, perhaps you won't even be able to join the expedition. Don't worry. I won't let people figure it out. As long as I leave no trace, it will be all right. Even if they figure out that I did that, they will have no evidence to accuse me. As the bloodthirsty desire rose in Barrett's heart, he couldn't hold it anymore. Barrett immediately prepared for his stealthy operation. I'll go with you. I'll help you hold Ka2 or back. If we brothers join hands, I think it won't be hard to kill him. Black Horn felt reluctant, but he only had the choice to cooperate with his brother. The two of them had a close brotherhood. They had been together for many years and battles. These two were men who weren't afraid of anything. Once they were determined, they would never hesitate. Their deeds would be harsh and furious, leaving opponents no chance to counterattack. Good bro. Barrett laughed, shouting. Go. We're going to kill him. If he dies, Feng Ku has no choice. He still needs our forces, anyway. Afterward, they left without letting their warriors know. They discreetly left the Black Curtain's headquarters in an attempt to kill their target. An isolated manor in the southwest area of the Heaven Punishment City. More than 10 warriors were gathering in a secret chamber underground. Their faces were grim. Lying in the stone coffin at the center of the chamber was a cold and frigid body. It was Fan Yi of the 9-Star Chamber of Commerce. The people surrounding him wore normal clothes, but they were all experts of the 9-Star Chamber of Commerce. At this moment, all of them looked gloomy. 2 days ago, Fan Yi came back with a pale face. He said that he was wounded severely and he needed to recover in seclusion. However, after one night, when they came to see him to discuss important matters, they found that he was no longer breathing. Normally, a warrior at the original God realm wouldn't have died that easily. Even though his God body was smashed, he could have used the soul altar to resurrect it with some kind of skill. But Fan Yi's soul altar also perished. He was dead, really dead. He would never come back to life ever again. When he came back the other day, although his condition wasn't good, his mind was still lucid. They thought that he wouldn't die that fast. They believed that it was impossible that his soul altar would also vanish. Nevertheless, he died. After only one night, his soul altar didn't exist anymore. The strangest thing was that none of them had recognized anything. They didn't even hear Fan Yi scream. His death was eccentrically unreasonable. They were all startled and frightened. Many people in the Heaven Punishment City were searching for Fan Yi at this moment. These experts were afraid. They became uneasy and anxious. They started to discuss whether they should leave the Heaven Punishment City or not. Although the 9-Star Chamber of Commerce had bought this manor at a high price, Russell and Feng Ku were the top leaders of the Heaven Punishment City and the tycoons of the entire area. If they continued to search, they would find this group shortly. What should we do? Fan Yi died. How can we explain this to the headmaster? Asked an old man, frowning as if he had a headache. If the headmaster knows this, we won't be able to dodge this responsibility. Before we came here, I told Fan Yi to wait until Li Yufeng was here. He didn't listen to me. Now we're all in trouble. He wanted to solve the problem before Li Yufeng came. He wanted to earn the merit alone. Too bad for him, he got such fatal results. He was too arrogant, said another one. More than 10 warriors grimaced. They didn't know what they should do. While they were anxious, the door of the secret chamber squeaked. A hunky middle-aged man appeared. This man had the second sky of original God realm. He was the master of the Li family, ranked behind the Fan family in the 9-Star Chamber of Commerce. Li Yufeng arrived. The 9-Star Chamber of Commerce consisted of many families. The Fan family and the Li family were the two strongest forces. Many years ago, the master of the Li family used to be the headmaster of the 9-star Chamber of Commerce. The Li family was also the strongest clan at that time. However, the master and the family's experts had perished while sweeping the land of God punishment. The Li family declined. The fans took the chance to rule the Chamber of Commerce. After many years of recovery, the Li family rose up again. Li Yufeng was the master of the Li family in this generation. His realm was profoundly high. In the 9-star Chamber of Commerce, he stood right behind Fan Tianpo. The Li family would have a chance to become more prosperous behind him. They believed that he could make the Li family surpass the Fan family and take the title back as the strongest clan in the 9-star Chamber of Commerce. Seeing him, they greeted respectfully with fright. "Let me see how he is." Li Yufeng frowned, walking to Fan Yi's corpse. He stretched his arm, touching the neck of the body. A dim light flashed on his palm. Beams of light moved around Fan Yi's neck, entering his corpse. After a while, Li Yufeng suddenly screamed in pain. His body jerked back as if he was attacked by a tremendous force. He discolored, letting out a low shout. "Too strong." Chapter 840, Dispute. Chapter 840, Dispute. Fan Yi's corpse was nothing out of the ordinary. He laid silently in the cold stone coffin. His soul altar remained perished. His life aura had vanished. Li Yufeng, the master of the Li family from the 9-star Chamber of Commerce, shouted. He looked pale as he retreated as if a strong, invisible force had hit him. He looked truly frightened. The wrist of the arm he had used to touch Fan Yi's body was shaking. His 5 fingers lost all color while his fingernails dissolved at a speed that naked eyes couldn't observe. Then, the dissolution expanded to the back of his fingers. It seemed like it was going to melt his entire hand. Li Yufeng took a deep breath. Under the scrutinizing looks of many warriors of the 9-star Chamber of Commerce, he sat down on the ground and closed his eyes, urging the energy within his body. Gold beams suddenly emitted from his fingertips. The sharp air swirled around his fingers trying to resist the evil, erosive force. After a while, he finally eradicated the energy that was intruding into his fingers. He was pale, but the others weren't sure if it was because he had consumed a lot of his energy or if it was because he was so frightened. The other warriors of the 9-star Chamber of Commerce dully looked at him. No one dared to utter a word as they were all very nervous. That strange and wicked energy had seeped into Fan Yi's body several days ago. It had made him return lucidly before taking his life and destroying his soul altar during the night. It had totally destroyed him. Although it has been several days, that energy had not dispersed yet. Li Yufeng tried to investigate with his second sky of original God realm and he was attacked by that strange energy. This power was unpredictable and unreasonably strong. The others secretly thought that they were lucky. They felt lucky that because their realm was low, they didn't have to use their soul consciousness or energy to look into Fan Yi's death like Li Yufeng had done. Otherwise, they wouldn't be standing here unharmed like this. Without a strong power and a profound realm like Li Yufeng's, if they sensed the corpse rashly, their god soul would also perish. So strong. After a while, Li Yufeng pulled himself together. Color returned to his face. He took a deep breath, his face stern. What happened to him? Any information? Who attacked him? Everybody remained quiet, shaking their heads. Master Li, what realm does the attacker have? What kind of power Upanishad does this one possess? Asked a warrior gingerly. I'm sure that the attacker's realm is higher than mine. About the power Upanishad, I haven't seen it before. That erosive ability is very frightening. If we couldn't examine Fan Yi, we would have never known his condition. Li Yufeng wagged his arm. A gold air emitted from his fingertip. He rose his hand and cut. A soft swish sound was heard and Fan Yi's chest was cut open. The 9-star Chamber of Commerce's warriors took one step forward to look at the cut in Fan Yi's chest. Inside Fan Yi's chest was an area of bloody paste. His internal organs and ribcage were dissolved. With a closer look, they found that Fan Yi's god body now was just like a skin bag containing the bloody paste. At this moment, Fan Yi looked like a rubber ball with some strange bloody pulp. Inside the rubber ball, his flesh, bones, and internal organs had been dissolved into that scary, bloody paste. His body had been destroyed entirely, which gave him no chance to recover. Everybody paled immediately. They were so scared of the cruel energy of the attacker. They felt anxious, thinking that their operation in the land of God punishment was too reckless this time. Except for the Li family's warriors, the others should leave. "We have something to discuss now," shouted Li Yufeng after pondering for a while, his face solemn. More than half of the 9-star Chamber of Commerce's warriors bent their bodies to excuse themselves, all having grimaced expressions. The ones who stayed were Li's warriors. They kept silent, looking at the open cut on Fan Yi's corpse. A white-headed old man at the first sky of original God realm twitched. Fear appeared deep in his eyes as he muttered, "Looks exactly the same." "You know about this?" Li Yufeng sighed, then forced a smile. "Who can reject 10,000 free top-quality divine crystals? Even if my brother worked as a hard-working pirate for 10 years, he wouldn't earn that much. They're gone just like that." "Sigh, that hag is lucky today." "Shut up." Shi Yang's face got colder. "If you are not going to mind your manners, don't complain about it to me." Ka Fu's face darkened. A blood-red light sparkled in his eyes as he coldly gazed at Shi Yang. "Ka Fu, if you think I'm wrong, we will diverge here." Shi Yang curled his lips, speaking indifferently. He turned to Ka Tuor, "You should watch your greedy brother better. This good-for-nothing man can't give up 10,000 divine crystals. How is he going to achieve anything big?" Ka Tuor changed his face, talking coldly. "Bastard. Apologize to my senior now. With your intelligence, do you think you can understand my senior's bright ideas?" "Dag." Ka Fu shouted, his face reddened in anger. "He's just a boy of unknown origin. Would he be worth spending so much on? Why? We live well in the land of God punishment. Even if we don't depend on anyone, we will have a piece of land on our own in the future. Why do we have to go with him? You know nothing." Ka Tuor snorted, "Apologize to my senior. Now. You aren't going to even obey my words." Under his brother's pressure, Ka Fu paled and reddened. His visages shifted continually. After a while, he sighed inwardly, then turned to Shi Yang, bending his body. "I'm sorry." Then, he turned around and left. Obviously, he wasn't convinced. "My brother has been in the land of God punishment for too long. He started to look down on people. He is just a dumb man. Brother, don't keep it in your mind." Ka Tuor smiled, talking to Shi Yang. "Brother, don't worry. I will teach him later. Please don't haggle with him. It's okay as long as you're loyal to me. For him, if he doesn't want to contribute, he won't receive my help in the future." Shi Yang waved his hand as if he didn't really care. "I will make him obedient," Ka Tuor said, giving him a dry smile, then bowed and left. Shi Yang's eyes were cold. He snorted, not saying anything else. He sat back in his seat. Through Ka Fu's discontented words, Shi Yang recognized that he didn't have control over this pair of brothers yet. Otherwise, even if Ka Fu didn't want to work for him, he wouldn't have dared to complain. Shi Yang started to consider whether he should use the flow of Ka Tuor's original soul to remind them a little bit or not. However, if he subdued Ka Tuor and made them unable to voice their opinions anymore, he would plant a seed of resentment in Ka Tuor's heart. They wouldn't follow him with all their hearts and will. When they found a way to resist him, they would rebel fiercely. His original plan was to use his power and competence to make Ka Tuor wholeheartedly work for him. It would be a struggle initially, but if he could make it work, Ka Tuor would never have other thoughts but to work for him loyally. All of a sudden, he was hesitant. Chapter 841, Madly Striving in the Battle. Chapter 841, Madly Striving in the Battle. A corner of the street outside the shop. "Next time, you better be careful. Don't try to argue with him. From the moment we cured Bao Ao and the other two, we've been walking on the same side as him. You know his power. Why do you need to get mad at him?" rebuked Ka Tuor. "Dage, He gave 10,000 top-quality divine crystals to a useless granny. He used your fortune. Ka Fu was so angry that his face was turning red. His resentful aura shot up into the sky. I don't want to see your accumulation of many hard-working years get used up like that. How many adverse situations have we been through to survive until today? Can you count the number of wounds on our bodies? We had only several 100,000 top-quality divine crystals, and he just threw away 10,000 pieces for free. How generous he is. But this asset isn't his. We have to exchange our lives for that. With 10,000 divine crystals, we could have bought 10 Tiger Shark War Chariot. Of course I know this, nodded Ka Tuor, then sighed begrudgingly. But if we don't invest in it, how can we profit from it? 10,000 top-quality divine crystals are nothing compared to the power Upanishad inheritance he gave me. Wait until I've entered the original God realm, we will have a position in the heaven punishment city. Won't the fortune come to us then? Forget it, I can't quarrel with you. I don't want to do that. But it would have been okay if he invested it well. However, that Granny Fei Lan has only the true God realm. I can't think of any way she would be useful to us. He said that she was one of us. Was that a joke? I think he treats us as his subordinates. Who is that man? Although he's strong, he doesn't have a background force. I think he will barely survive the star map expedition. Ka Fu shook his head. Maybe he knows something extraordinary about that old woman. Ka Tuor contemplated, his face stern as if he suddenly recalled something. No way. Dieji, do you also think that Fei Lan has something strange? Did he convince you? Ka Fu was so surprised. Do you think I am that easily influenced like that? Ka Tuor laughed. Anyway, because of his words, I've asked some of my friends. I think that it's true that we have an amazing hermit in the land of God punishment. I heard the other leaders say that when the land of God punishment had almost fallen many years ago, it was saved miraculously. No one could explain why. Fei Lan is the oldest living person in the heaven punishment city. If we have such a character, she would be an obvious suspect. Ka Fu didn't dare agree with him. He just shook his head with a forced smile. Impossible. If she's that intimidating, why does she need to stay in the heaven punishment city? The raging flamestar area is vast enough for her to rule, right? Why does she only want our divine crystals? We can't guess what she is thinking. Ka Tuor also couldn't explain it. Who's that? However, right at that moment, Shi Yang's shout came from the garden behind the shop. A torrential, bursting energy immediately shot up into the sky. Ka Tuor and his brother were astounded. Without much hesitation, they dashed towards the garden behind the shop. This garden had some big trees and they were shaking inaudibly at the moment. Leaves fluttered everywhere. Shi Yang floated in the middle of the rolling leaves, his face solemn. A scorching air current flooded the garden from an unknown source. The big trees in the garden were quickly ignited. The flame rose high in the air. Shortly after, the backyard of Ka Fu's shop was burning, creating a vivid red sea of fire. While Shi Yang's thought flickered, an extremely cold energy shot out from his body. His body now had a thick layer of crystal clear ice. Each of his pores had a cold current oozing out. A strange barrier, which was an invisible net, covered Ka Fu's shop shortly. The furious flame burst out furiously. The temperature was so high that blood in people's body would have evaporated. As soon as Ka Tuor reached the backyard, his face changed dramatically. He shouted in fright, "It's Barret. He dares to attack us in the heaven punishment city." Ka Fu couldn't help but scream. "Osha *T. My shop." Staying within 3 meters of ice created by his ice power, Shi Yang's eyes were like sabers. He shouted, "If you dare to attack us, show yourself." A fire cluster appeared distinctively in the fire sea. Barret, one of the top leaders in the land of God punishment, appeared in that scorching fire cluster. With a ferocious face, he laughed like crazy. "You're brave, kid. Too bad though. You won't escape death today." Boom. Tens of thousands of flames fired like fire ribbons, entangling Shi Yang's god body. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The 3-meter thick ice layer melted rapidly. You guys should just let me kill you. Don't resist. Or else, don't blame me for having no mercy. Barrett's face was crazy and savage. His cold eyes raked through Ka-Tuor and his brother. Don't move. I won't kill you too. If you even move your fingers, I will believe that you are going against me and I won't show you mercy. The extremely cold energy circulated around his body. The melted ice layer was built up again. Shi Yang was trying to resist the flames. At this moment, he didn't use all of his energy. He just watched Ka-Tuor coldly. He wanted to see what Ka-Tuor and Ka-Fu would do. Dag, we can, just neglect him. Ka-Fu lowered his voice. Damn it. Ka-Tuor was enraged. His soul altar spun. The furious, distorted energy burst out from his god body. Rocks and countless miscellaneous items in Ka-Fu's shop rolled up into the sky, gathering in his god domain. Court death. Black Horn's loud and frank voice arose from a corner of the fire sea. Countless icicles flew out immediately, aimed at Ka-Tuor and Ka-Fu. Black Horn was hiding to watch the two brothers. Seeing that they had made up their mind, he attacked them immediately. The icy cold energy exploded, creating so many icicles, ice sabers, and ice swords that flew around the brothers. Kill them all. Barrett was furious. He shouted and attacked instantly like a fire giant. A fire punch like a volcano pounded on Shi Yang's god body. Bang! The thick ice layers created by the ice-cold flame shattered under one punch. Ice rocks shot out everywhere. Shi Yang screamed as though he was hit by a giant hammer. His veins and bones were shaken. He couldn't help but urge the energy of the immortal demon blood, entering the third sky of rampage instantly. His eyes became garnet. He faced the sky and roared like a savage beast. Starlight dots fell from countless stars in the sky. In just a moment, they formed the star armor, which was fused perfectly with his nebula. The flames swarmed over, covering his god body. However, they couldn't burn his star armor immediately. At the same time, Shi Yang touched his forehead, making his soul altar spin. Boom boom boom. Hundreds of rough lightning strikes shot out from his god body like a bunch of dragons. The lightning strikes twisted in the air, darting furiously toward Barrett. Some strange flames also flew out from his glabella, dancing like spirits in the sea fire. They were all aimed at Barrett. In his savage roar, Shi Yang's god body withered. An evil, seething energy rocketed furiously. His aura now was like a demogon. While his power Upanishad changed, a dead seal condensed in the sky. He showed a sad, shrill face that grimaced. He hissed and screamed in pain, flying towards Barrett. At this moment, Shi Yang's energy in his entire body had burst out. His momentum was like a rainbow. He wasn't inferior to Barrett. Barrett turned into the fire giant. With his first sky of original god realm, he couldn't kill Shi Yang at his first attempt. As Shi Yang was able to counterattack, Barrett became more furious. Swish swish swish. The flames condensed into fire snakes. Tens of thousands of those fire snakes were swimming in Barrett's god domain. They carried the nature of fire that crazily flew towards Shi Yang. The scorching temperature had melted Ka-Fu's shop shortly. All items were burned. The torrential, frightening flame seemed to melt the soul altar once. Confine. Shi Yang's god domain changed one more time. Now he was using space power. All objects in his area halted for 1 second. A massive space crack was formed, swallowing half of the flames Barrett had created. Boom boom boom. More and more fire snakes bombarded Shi Yang's god body. He had to back off as more than 100 fists were punching him at the same time. His bones resounded as if they were about to crack. His face reddened like there were flames on it. He took this attack on his own. Anyway, his real competence was inferior to Barrett's. Under such a powerful attack, he felt like a giant was bullying him around. Not dead yet. Barrett's eyes were radiant with ruthless light. He was using his true flame. It was the first time he had to struggle hard fighting a second sky of King God Realm warrior. In the screams, Barrett energy rose once again. He had finally released all of the energy that a first sky of original God Realm warrior could have. The intimidating aura was really earth-shattering. Star moves. Shi Yang's soul altar changed again. Star energy was sent out thickly from the nebula in his body. It had formed a connection with the nine-tiered galaxy. The glorious star inside the nebula also flew out visibly in front of Shi Yang. The starlight of outer space gathered and shone on that marvelous star. The rice-sized star enlarged shortly. It was now a complete crystal ball, which was constantly taking in the star energy. It became so dazzling that it hurt to look at it. This star had a subtle magical connection with Shi Yang's god soul. His hand flicked the star that barged into Barrett. Boom! Just like a mountain falling from the sky hitting Barrett, sparks were sent everywhere. Barrett was struck and he fell on the ground. His aura was subdued for a moment. But it was just a short moment. In Barrett's infuriated roar, flames rose from the ground. He seemed to urge the flame underground, flying savagely toward Shi Yang. The fire resembling Barrett emerged from the fire sea. They all stretched their arms out to snatch Shi Yang as if they wanted to tear Shi Yang into pieces. Each of these fire figures had the soul energy fluctuation. They seemed to be the magical fire clones of Barrett. Chapter 842. The Value of 10,000 Top-Quality Divine Crystals. Chapter 842. The Value of 10,000 Top-Quality Divine Crystals. More than 10 flame figures as vague as the giant god of fire flooded from everywhere, bringing the tremendous fire all together. The giant fire surged violently, bursting uncontrollably from the ground as if it was going to cover the entire Heaven Punishment City. The scorching energy was about to destroy the entire city. At this moment, Barrett released the complete power of the original God Realm, launching his formidable attacks. The fire snakes wound around Shi Yang's god body. In the furious flames, his energies gathered in his meridians and streamed strangely. With a gap between an entire realm, Shi Yang had the right to be proud that Barrett had to use all of his strength to try to deal with him. Any warrior at the second sky of King God Realm fighting a warrior at the original God Realm would not have a different result as someone who committed suicide. He would never have the luck to escape death. For Shi Yang, since he was able to stand until this moment and force Barrett to use all of his powers, he had actually reached an unimaginable level for his realm. Barrett's power and understanding of power Upanishad were much more profound than what Fan Yi had. Shi Yang had used the immortal demon blood, his different powers Upanishads, and even all of the heaven flames to resist the savage man. However, he had to struggle a lot. Seeing the fire figures swarming over, Shi Yang pulled himself together, using the soul altar to revolve the heaven flame tier. Shi Yang released the heaven flames. Shortly after, they created a multi-layered heaven flame shield. It dazzled gloriously like a rainbow. At first glance, Shi Yang was floating in the middle of a five-colored nimbus. Divine light radiated brightly around him. Although divine layers made of heaven flames couldn't fuse with his god body or god soul, they still looked godly and magical. The fire giants touched the heaven flames' shield and bounced back. They couldn't attack Shi Yang. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The heaven flame shield made contact with the fire giants. Colorful lights and sparks were sent out dazzlingly. Floating in the center of the heaven flame defense, Shi Yang quickly urged the energy in his body, exploding the energy of the immortal demon blood. His aura didn't decrease even a slight bit. He condensed the star energy to create the star shield the second time. The star that had flown out revolved for a while in the ground before exploding outward and attacking Barrett violently. As his god soul was blocked, no matter how fast Barrett moved, he couldn't escape the star's pursuit. Starlight flooded the place. A flying star chased after Barrett, troubling him. Barrett didn't have a free moment to strengthen his attacks. The grimaced ghost face created by the dead power appeared from nowhere once again. Just like that peculiar star, it started to fly after Barrett. At the same time, Shi Yang's surging negative energy all poured into that ghost face. Vaguely, Shi Yang and the ghost face seemed to merge into one. That ghost face then turned into his appearance and figure. It turned into a miniature version of his soul, a version that was filled with negative, cunning, and wicked emotions. Those emotions were terrifying enough to corrupt people. At the original God realm, Barret's soul altar was also affected. From time to time, his mood affected his power, preventing him from increasing his energy. While they were battling, Shi Yang's energy drained crazily. Ka Tuor and Ka Fu were entangled with Black Horn, so they couldn't have a moment to help him. Boom! It sounded like some hard shell broke. The barrier outside of the fire sea was broken. Barret's god body that was floating upright in the fire sea halted all of a sudden as if an invisible hand had grabbed him. The flames covering the entire sky disappeared rapidly at speed naked eyes couldn't observe. After 3 breaths, the entire sea of fire vanished. Barret was dumbstruck. He just stood dully as if he couldn't move a finger. Swish! His god body flew backward as if a strong, ferocious beast was dragging him back to his base. Black Horn's ice covering his entire body turned into small fragments, shooting out. He spurted blood. He was also frozen like Barret, dragged out of this place. He couldn't control his god body to resist. It was so strange that the earth and heaven energy around them was sucked away. No one could feel any beam of energy or aura. Barret and Black Horn couldn't move a finger. They were petrified as they were sprung towards the black curtain's base. Blood trickled from their mouths while they were still flying in the sky. Shi Yang was dumbstruck. Ka Tuor and Ka Fu gawked. Many warriors around them realized the bizarre situation. They looked at the sky and saw Barret and Black Horn being thrown to Black Curtain's base. A grumbling sound echoed afterward. A 100-meter-tall building in the Black Curtain's base collapsed. Giant rocks fell and covered Barret and Black Horn. The shop had been burned into ashes. A strong smell of burned things permeated the air. Shi Yang, Ka Tuor, Ka Fu shivered in fear. They looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. Barret at the original God realm and Black Horn at the peak of the King God realm had prepared well and attacked them. They were easily defeated like that. At the same time, they were wounded and pressed down by their own base. What they witnessed was extremely bizarre. Shi Yang's face was uncertain. Light continuously sparkled in his eyes. He pondered for a while, then bowed respectfully to the void. "Thank you, Precursor, for saving me twice." The earth and heaven energy that had disappeared slowly flooded into the ruined shop, leaving the burnt and charred items on the cracked ground. Ka Tuor looked around with fright. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. "Quick, show your gratitude." Shi Yang's face darkened, shouting. Ka Tuor and Ka Fu were shaken. They finally pulled themselves together. Just like Shi Yang, they bowed to the void respectfully. "Thank you, Precursor, for granting us your grace." It's because of the weight of 10,000 divine crystals. Otherwise, I wouldn't have cared about your lives. A hoarse female voice came to them in the air. "Shi Yang, make these 2 fools shut their mouths. One more disrespectful word from them and they will die. You fools." Ka Tuor and Ka Fu were extremely scared and they dropped their jaws. It was Fei Lan's voice. She had heard their resentment when they were talking with each other outside the shop. Just a moment ago, they had doubted Shi Yang's decision. Now everything was clear. Ka Fu wanted to cry. He slumped on his knees and said nothing while he kowtowed on the rocky ground. Shortly after, his forehead bled. Ka Tuor was perplexed for a while. He kneeled down too. He stooped like a kid receiving his parents' teaching and didn't dare snap back a word. At this moment, they were totally convinced. Now they weren't suspicious anymore. Barret at the first sky of original God realm was dragged away in just a blink. They couldn't wiggle out as they were pressed into their lair. What kind of power was this? Fan Yi is dead. However, Barret is a member of the Heaven Punishment City. I just taught him a lesson. I won't kill him. 1,000 divine crystals were enough to exchange for Fan Yi's life. Because of the 10,000 divine crystals you gave me, I helped you out this time. We don't owe each other anything now. Fei Lan's voice arose the second time. Her faint, floaty voice came from nowhere. After she had finished, it was like she stopped paying attention to this area. No matter how hard Ka Tuor and Ka Fu pounded their heads on the ground, she didn't answer them. Shi Yang was calm from the beginning to the end. He wasn't surprised at all. The moment Barrett was bound, he suspected that Fei Lan had helped him one more time. He also knew the reason why Fei Lan helped him. It wasn't because of the divine crystals. He suspected that it was because of the blood mark. After a while, hearing nothing else from Fei Lan, Shi Yang said faintly, "You guys should get up. She's gone." "Ah no, perhaps she has never left her shop. With her realm and cultivation base, the entire Heaven Punishment City is in her hand." Ka Fu was upset, his eyes gloomy as he lowered his head. He sighed weakly. "I understand now. I was so wrong. So was it worth giving those 10,000 divine crystals?" Shi Yang glared at him, talking coldly. "It was worth it. Definitely worth it. I just couldn't see the truth. Please, don't scold me." Ka Fu lowered his head, feeling regret and shame. Bloody Slaughterer Ka Tuor's eyes brightened up as he shot up from the ground and asked with excitement. "Senior, what's her origin? How is she related to us?" "She's on our side," Shi Yang smiled mysteriously. "Remember. You must be careful while talking in the Heaven Punishment City. If she wanted to listen to you guys, no one would stop her." Ka Tuor nodded like a rooster eating rice. "Don't worry, brother. From now on, I will respect her like she's my ancestor. I will pay close attention too. Only the three of us know about this. If you let someone else know, I won't be able to protect you both. She will erase you from this world personally," Shi Yang added after contemplating for a while. The two brothers, of course, didn't dare to say anything. They pounded their chests to assure Shi Yang that they would say nothing about it. From deep inside their hearts, this pair of brothers was totally convinced. Under the care of those like Fei Lan in the Heaven Punishment City, who would be able to touch Shi Yang? Shi Yang suddenly frowned. He squinted slightly as he changed his visage. A dark spot appeared in a ruined corner of the shop. A magical energy fluctuation rippled, but the others couldn't feel it. Sensing quietly for a while, Shi Yang was astounded. He then said to Ka Tuor, "Follow me. Don't mind this place." Ka Tuor and Ka Fu didn't dare to doubt Shi Yang's decision anymore. They said nothing and followed Shi Yang to the small alley in the back of the shop. They crossed many small alleys and disappeared shortly. Not long after that, many warriors came and investigated the ruin. They were frightened, discussing noisily. "What happened?" "Dunno. Was that old Brother Feng Ku who defeated Barrett and Blackhorn?" "You fool. If Brother Feng Ku had this kind of ability, the Heaven Punishment City wouldn't have 4 leaders. He would become the sole leader. This kind of power is enough to clean up anybody. Barrett didn't have a bit of energy to counterattack. Didn't you see his body shoot over our heads with a fearful face?" "Yeah, it's true. Old Brother Feng Ku can't be that intimidating. Who is that person then?" "Dunno. Where are Ka Tuor and his brother?" "Dead. Perhaps they escaped." Although they were discussing many things, they could only come up with one conclusion. The attacker was very intimidating. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.